Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Friday, y'all. Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk, getting you into the weekend and a big Saturday for Winnipeg teams going up against Edmonton teams. Going to be a good one tomorrow, 6 p.m. IG Field. Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Edmonton Elks. The Bombers look to officially clinch the Western Division again and book that Western Final for November 11th at IG Field. And the Winnipeg Jets off to Edmonton to take on the Oilers in a battle of 1-3 teams. Both teams lost last night, a little bit of a different fashion for one than the other, but that doesn't change what the record is. 1-3 for the Jets after their loss last night to the Vegas Golden Knights, which we'll get to in a minute, and a kind of stunning loss for the Edmonton Oilers in Philadelphia, which got an F-bomb out of the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers, Jay Woodcroft, last night in the city of brotherly love. So we've got to get to last night's game. We will do that with Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. We'll get ready for Bombers Elks. We're going to kick it off with Ed Tait coming up in about 25 minutes or so. And then, in a very strange circumstance, myself and Dustin Nielson, we chop it up every day together on the Lock Shop, and obviously he comes on our show, I go on his. I will be in Edmonton tomorrow. He will be in Winnipeg. He is coming here tonight to call tomorrow's Bombers Elks game. I'm going to Edmonton to check out Jets and Oilers. So Dusty's going to come by a little bit later on before he jumps on the bird to Winnipeg to talk about the latest with the Oilers, talk about tomorrow night's hockey game, and then set up Bombers Elks and a little bit of a CFL talk as well. We can't do Friday during NFL season without the NFL Notebook with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. That's coming up in hour 2 of the program as well. And then, of course, it's Friday. You know what that means, folks. Marbles. Make sure you're with us live on YouTube around 2:45 when we open up registration. I'm sure Michael Remis has a bang-up track for us to enjoy today, and we will have one of our very exclusive Winnipeg Sports Talk blue hoodies, our version of the Masters green jacket for the winner of today's marble race. So buckle up. Great to have you all with us. Shout out to everybody in chat. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. And let's get going with a big Friday show here on WST. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, a big shout out to our sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Coolbet Canada just finished the Lock Shop, our biggest show every week, our NFL best bets. You can check that on the podcast, search Lock Shop wherever you get your favorite pods. Or if you want to check it out on YouTube, it is available on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel and feed. Of course, our friends at Princess Auto, Consolidated Supply, Royal Sports, and Boston Pizza, F Apparel, Nick and Nicky DQ, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Little Brown Jug, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, Modern Man, Canadian Club, and of course, we'll get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray as well. Michael Remis, come on in here. And hey, just as we get going on this program, a big thanks to James and Angela from Canadian Club. They just fired us over some social passes for the game tomorrow. So we will have an opportunity for you to win tickets. And again, these don't have assigned seats. You get access to the game as well as a C-seat and ginger with your ticket. And Remo, why don't you fill people in right off the bat as to how we're going to distribute those to podcast listeners and YouTube viewers for tomorrow's 6 o'clock kickoff.
That's right. I just did a giveaway. It's on our website, winnipegsportstalk.com/tickets. Let me just fix the date on it. But yeah, it's live right now. So go there and you can put in your email, get additional entry if you follow us on Instagram, or get on and subscribe to our mailing list. We're trying to get a nice mailing list going here. So check that out, winnipegsportstalk.com/tickets. I'm just trying to make sure that it works, but it will be there in 1 second. So if you're on the podcast, it'll for sure be up, and on YouTube, just hang on a second. But Exciting. I mean, crazy weekend here for Winnipeg sports. Going up against Edmonton and, Bombers and Jets. You're heading to Edmonton. Dusty's heading here, but hopefully the Bombers can, seal up that Western Division victory. They get a division banner, but you host the West Final. And then the Jets got to get on this win call. You're feeling good about the way they're playing, but you look at the record, and they're 1-3 at the bottom of the Central Division. The goals against column, not pretty. But I think you got to overall not as down today as we were maybe Tuesday after the Velarde injury.
Yeah, no. Listen, we'll get to all of that. Yeah, it was a different feeling coming out of the building last night as opposed to just how disappointing on so many levels the Tuesday game was on the ice, in the crowd, and all of that. I got to give you some props, as well as our Wonder Boy Connor Hrabchak. If you haven't seen it already, gang, Remo hooked up with Connor, who was still at the arena after popping in the room last night after the show, and you guys did a pretty bang-up job with a bit of an instant reaction to a game where the Winnipeg Jets played much better than they did against the Los Angeles Kings, generated a lot, made some killer mistakes, though, that ended up being the difference between winning and losing in a game that they certainly could have won.
Yeah, and I think, you can get kind of down on giving up, 4 goals, I guess 5, if you count the empty netter. But I think overall, you got to be okay with the way that they're playing. And yeah, short to Connor, him and I did catch up. Check it out on our YouTube channel. Instant reaction from the game. We kind of just went through the game, went through all the goals. So, they just had, they got robbed by Logan Thompson, and it just reminded me so much of the game against Calgary where, they were limiting chances, getting great chances, but just getting robbed. And, you make a couple mistakes, but DeMello whiffs, trying to clear the puck. Stone steals it, passes to Howden and in. The other one is Neil Pionk loses a battle in front to Paul Cotter. Vegas has the puck, and then Whip goes around the net, finds Martinez in the slot, and he buries one. And then the special teams again, and that was the thing in Calgary. That was the difference in Calgary. The Jets, didn't convert on the power play and allowed a shorthanded goal in this one. Well, the Jets were 1 for 2. Big goal at the end from Iafallo, where, again, similar to the Calgary game where they tied. You think they're going to get a point. But Vegas was 2 for 2 on the power play. And it's just such a game of inches where Mason Appleton, he's already laboring around. He took a shot to the foot. He could barely move out there, and he does a desperation dive for the puck. It doesn't get out. It was, there's some questionable, I think, officiating in the third period that even led to that power play. So, I don't know. They can't score, or they haven't been able to score. The goaltending hasn't been what we've seen from them in the past. So, I think they're going to be okay, but this is it hasn't gone the Jets' way here. But I think these are the issues that they have. They can figure them out.
Yeah, listen, I think there was a lot of good to be taken out of the game last night, as disappointing as the end result was. And you just mentioned, the officiating in the third period. Listen, I'm not blame the refs guy. You would think that over the course of an 82-game season, you're going to feel like you got screwed in some games, and you're going to maybe sheepishly admit you got the benefit of the doubt on the others. The one thing that I will say is that, we hear and we know referees manage the games, but some of the things that were called were head scratchers. And then because of that, a couple, from my perspective, obvious penalties were not called. And at some point, I think you have to just say, if you missed a call, you missed a call. But you can't be playing catch up with what you've done in the previous 10 minutes as far as managing the game. I know there was a lot of people that were angry that, the Vegas goal counted, on what potentially was a penalty to Mason Appleton. He was gassed. He was falling already. I don't think that was a call. But as you very correctly pointed out on Twitter, Reem, the Winnipeg Jets capitalized on the power play that, that they had got earlier that may or may not have been a penalty. And then just a couple minutes later, Adam Lowry with maybe the most obvious trip, a trip that is called 99 times out of 100 in the National Hockey League. A guy careless, stick in the skates, trips him, and no call. And very shortly afterwards, Alex Iafallo goes to the box, and the Vegas Golden Knights ended up getting the winning goal. And this, of course, after the Jets had battled back to tie that game with a really spirited third period performance, night and day from what we saw from the hockey club when they got squeezed by the LA Kings in a similar situation Tuesday night and really didn't have much going on at all.
Yeah, I don't want to dump all over the officials all the time, but it has been weird. And I feel like the Jets have kind of changed their standard of play through the course of some of these games. Like that Florida game where they weren't calling any interference on the on the Panthers, and the Jets get dinged for 2. And then, they didn't call what? They didn't call boarding, which if that's the definition of boarding on Cole Perfetti on Tuesday, what is? And then yesterday, Mark Scheifele got hauled down. The guy got his stick in his stomach and he fell into the boards. He slams his stick, very upset about it. And so they call this, penalty on Barbashev where he's tangled up with Kupari, and everyone in the arena thought it was on Kupari, the penalty.
Oh, the ref you suck chant was almost going before everyone realized that was in fact a penalty on Barbashev. That was a strange one. And I think that because that was such an iffy call, that was why they didn't make that other one. And again, listen, it wasn't because of the referees that the Jets lost that game. They need to be better on special teams. They need to get a one more save. And listen, I thought Laurent Brossoit was fine last night. But listen, for another game, he was the second best goalie on the ice because Logan Thompson was absolutely freaking phenomenal yesterday, Remis. And I mean, it was a damn good thing that Cole Perfetti scored later on in the game. He needed that one. His team needed it big time because the robbery that Thompson put on Perfetti in the first period probably would have kept him up for days with that massive, massive open net and the way that Thompson came from out of nowhere to stone Perfetti in what seemed like a sure goal.
Yeah, and he got all that one, and Thompson's just going across trying to put his body in front of the net and, got a piece of that one. And Perfetti, I mean, I have the lasting image of him, trying to jam that puck in against Calgary and not going in. He hadn't scored all year, and I thought that second line we talked yesterday, how they needed to step up. They certainly did. Nikolai Ehlers got his first 2 points of the season, 2 assists, and I mean, a beautiful tic-tac-toe play with Ehlers to Nemesnikov to Perfetti, who, dances the puck past Logan Thompson. But yeah, there were some big saves yesterday, and, someone in chat is like, did you guys watch the Kool-Aid stream saying we're drinking the Jets Kool-Aid? I mean, you look at Money Puck, here's the deserve to win-o-meter. They got the Jets at 73%. You look at the scoring chances. I mean, look at all these dots around Vegas's net. The Jets had so many, and look how few there are. I mean, the Jets outshot Vegas, controlled play. But what, you make a couple mistakes, like you mishandle a puck, or you get beat in front of your own net in a puck battle, and the puck goes in, and as you said, in every game, the Jets have had the second best goalie on the ice, and that's not something we really expect, which is why you think it's going to normalize. Connor Hellebuyck, what is he, in the minus for expected goals? What is it? Goals saved above expected. He's in the negative. For then usually he's among tops in the league. So you think that stuff's going to get sorted out. But Rick Bowness did say after the game, they're making soft plays, and they got to clean it up, and they're not going to keep winning. We keep giving up 4. I mean, you look at their goals against in the league, it's not good, but I think there are positives you can certainly take. Don't want to go all doom and gloom here like it was after Tuesday. I think you got to still
listen, if you want to freak out and say that this is a complete disaster and the fire and the smoke is burning up, go ahead. That's what the chat's for. I'm sure there's an HF boards thread out there that you can get into and freak out. I mean, we're 4 games into the season, and there have been some things that simply haven't been good enough. Goaltending has been right at the top of that list. I'm the biggest Hellebuyck backer. He has been well below his standard for his first 3 games. And I thought Laurent Brossoit certainly wasn't. It wasn't that Laurent Brossoit didn't play well, although I'm sure that, one of those goals, the one that went over his shoulder, he probably would like to have back. But again, sometimes you make your own luck. And, the Jets, they crashed the net. Maybe not quite to the extent that Vegas does, but they had tons of opportunities. Logan Thompson was probably the best player on the ice last night. And, they lost a hockey game. That, but to me, I mean, and I'll say this: the feeling in the building, the feeling talking to people after the game, was a far, far cry from the disappointment of Tuesday night when the Jets started well and then simply had no answer. I've already seen it a number of times in chat. We'll always think of the infamous terms pushback from Rick Bowness when talking about, his team in the Vegas Golden Knights. And listen, I like the pushback from Winnipeg in that game especially in the third period when they were down. So, listen, this is a results-based business. It's pro sports. The team lost, and that's not good enough. Rick Bowness didn't seem to be too pleased with the number of things that happened in the game, and we'll get to that in a minute. But, I mean, I have a hard time coming on after a game like that, the way that it was played, and tried to go, full 9/11, 5-alarm fire with the way the club is, because I think if you look at the overall body of work right now through 4 games, which again is a very small sample size, we've had 10 pretty darn good periods, 2 not so good. And unfortunately, maybe they deserve a better record. It doesn't matter. It just makes it that much more important to get back in the win column. And man, that game tomorrow night, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Two teams that I know it's game 5 of an 82-game regular season, but you would think that you'll see engaged and 2 very desperate hockey clubs to get those 2 points to avoid falling to 1 and 4. Let's hear what Bones had to say from last night's game, Reem, because while I think there was certainly from a fan's perspective of people there, an appreciation for the way the team came back, Bones was really focused in on what killed them last night, and that was some mistakes and some interesting terminology from Bones, which we'll get to. But here's Bones overall on last night's game, and a disappointing loss for Winnipeg after a pretty solid 60 minutes of play.
The end result stings. That was a great third period. Give their goalie a lot of credit. He made all those key saves. That being said, we just can't keep giving up 4 or 5 goals a game. We're not going to win until we stop that. Which means we got to clean up our zone. Our turnovers in our zone are really costing us. We're spending too much unnecessary time in our zone, and we're giving up chances. But again, until we stop this 4 or 5 goals every game, and I know it's an empty netter, we'll create the offense that we did tonight, and we played it better defensively. But Logan Thompson was great. Give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, there's Bones tipping the hat to Logan Thompson. But again, it was some mistakes that the Winnipeg Jets made. And listen, I don't want to single out Dylan DeMello. He's had a pretty nice start. He scored. He's had an assist. He's been involved. He's playing big minutes with Josh Morrissey. But, I mean, that play was just an absolute disaster. I mean, it was a gift to them. And, Josh sort of got caught in the middle of trying to cover 2 guys after DeMello gave the puck over. You do it to a player like Mark Stone, you're going to be in bad shape, and Brett Howden capitalized on it. And Vegas was opportunistic. I don't think that was the best Vegas Golden Knights performance we've seen, or I can tell you that it certainly wasn't. It was an eminently winnable game, and I think that was the disappointment in Bones' voice afterwards, knowing that it really was there for the taking the way that they played. And I think we saw a lot of good things from the forwards. But, man, the blue line, I mean, I think if you're identifying areas where the Winnipeg Jets absolutely need to be better, it is on the blue line. And we'll get into Logan Stanley and how he looked, coming back in. But, it really came down to some turnovers. The killer one was the DeMello one, but that was certainly not the only one. Bones lamented the giveaways by his club that ended contributing to their demise.
And those turnovers, it's not like it's just one player. I mean, guys.
It's everybody.
Right. Guys
soft plays. Soft plays at the wrong time. We're still playing the Stanley Cup champions. They're big, they're strong, they're aggressive, and we're making soft plays. So, we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Was that almost more of a mental thing, just the mindset more than anything physical? Or?
Yeah, no, it's a mental thing. There's no question that we're making. You want to get the puck out of your zone, you make high percentage plays, and you make hard plays. We're making poor percentage plays, and we're making soft plays. It's a bad combination.
very interesting choice of words by Rick Bowness. It seems like it is a way of calling out his team without going all the way. But I can guarantee you, nobody, especially in a matchup like that against a team as good, as tough, as consistent, as deep as the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets know what they're getting from Vegas. And to have their coach saying too many soft plays, a bit of an indictment of, part of the game last night. Bones talked about what they have to do to eliminate those quote-unquote soft plays.
Well, we'll just keep pointing it out and keep talking about it and preaching about it, and harder plays. Like, again, now we're going into Edmonton, and they're playing a lot better right now. We're playing really good hockey clubs. We can't make it easy for them. And when you turn pucks over, you're making it way too easy for the opposition and giving them scoring chances that they normally shouldn't get. But again, that's leading to the 4 or 5 goals against. We take pride in our defensive play. We carried us last year, and we've got to clean that up, and it starts with puck possession.
And just to kind of expand on that from Bones. There was a lot to like with what the Winnipeg Jets did to generate offensive opportunities. The things that had been a calling card of Winnipeg over the course of the last few seasons, certainly last season, great goaltending and great penalty killing, and obviously those are intertwined, wasn't there last night and has not been there through the year. I mean, if that can get shored up, and again, eliminate the mistakes where you are just providing these opportunities to your opponents. I mean, if the team can keep doing what they're doing at the other end of the ice, I mean, we probably wouldn't be talking about a team that's 1-3. That being said, that's where they are. There were some positives in this game, though, and we will get to that in a minute. Here's number 3, Reem. Bones talked about liking, a lot of what he's been seeing.
We like a lot of what we're seeing. Yeah, the second period, I wasn't happy with the second period tonight, but we got out of it, and we're 1 shot down. So, the last 2 periods against LA were bad, but we're losing to really good hockey clubs, but we're shooting ourselves in the foot. All
right, so kind of self-inflicted. Pretty clear what the coach had to say about that. Now, as I mentioned, there were some real positives. And Remo, we talked yesterday about Adam Lowry's line and how with Nino Niederreiter and Alex Iafallo on that line, for my money, that is as good of a Lowry line as we've seen maybe ever, with both what they can do defensively and being a lot more potent offensively. And Alex Iafallo had a monster game. Now, unfortunately, he was in the penalty box as Vegas scored. Jack Eichel scored to make it 4-3 in the third period. But he was all over the place, led the Jets with 7 shots on goal, scored early on a rebound to get the team up 1-0 early on, and then finished off a beautiful tic-tac-toe play on the power play assisted by Ehlers and Scheifele to get the Jets right back in it. Here's what Bones had to say about number 9, AI.
Oh, he was outstanding. He's been that, like, he got the goals tonight, but he's been very consistent for us every shift, every game. He's just, he's a hockey player. He comes to the rink, he's ready to work every day. He's competitive. He's fearless out there. Not the biggest guy, but he gets in there and he hangs on the pucks and he gets his nose dirty. Like, he's a hockey player. He's been great for us.
You guys would have numbers on things like this, but when it comes to forechecking and winning pucks back and knocking them down and things, would he be one of your leaders there?
Yeah, he would be. Yeah, he's right in there. Like, he's got great hockey sense. He's got great anticipation, which leads into those things.
All right, so there's a little bit more bones on Alex Iafallo, who was awesome last night. The other thing that I left being a lot more optimistic about, Remo, was the play of the second line. I thought Nemetsnikov, he had a couple giveaways, but he also had an absolutely beautiful setup to Cole Perfetti for that big game to get the Jets back in it. And Nikolai Ehlers, I think in the second half of that game, started looking a lot more like the Nikolai Ehlers that the Winnipeg Jets need. Here's what Bones had to say about the Perfetti, Ehlers, Nemetsnikov line from last night.
Yeah, though, they were moving the puck really well. We got to do a better job on the faceoffs with that line. They're getting killed in the faceoff circle. They're so good with the puck, but every time we lose a faceoff, we got to go get it back. so we can clean up the face-off circle and with that line. You know, they're not the biggest guys, but if they use their speed and their creativity and they use each other, that line looked good. It did.
So there you go. What did you think about Oilers last night?
Yeah, I think you look good. You saw that speed, the quick passing there on the power play. Maybe it took them a bit extra to become more familiar. I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty clear. Like the Balharry injury, I know you want to say you don't want to get rattled, but I mean, it was pretty obvious. I mean, they were off to a great start on Tuesday's game and weren't able to find it back. You know, you're jumping up the lines and, you know, those guys were good. You know, you mentioned the face-offs. Overall, the Jets losing face-offs with 60% to 40%. We know Bones, you know, always harps on face-offs and getting puck off the draw, but I thought those guys were good. They got a goal. You know, lines the third line as well. I mean, we mentioned yesterday we thought they were going to be pretty strong with Iafallo and Niederreiter on wings with Lowry. You know, I think the top line, we'll see. You know, if Mason Appleton lasts there with Connor and Shafley. But you know, if you were panicking after losing Gabe Vilardi, I think they look pretty good against the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Well, and as we said, I mean, it sets up a battle of 1 and 3 teams tomorrow night in Edmonton, 9:00 start. You'll be able to finish up the Bomber game and settle down for a little round 2 of Winnipeg versus Edmonton tomorrow night. Winnipeg Jets going to need a big game from Connor Hellebuck. And as I said, just quickly on Logan Stanley, for a guy, we talked about the opportunity that he had in front of him yesterday to go out, play a physical game, show the coaches why it was a good idea to put him in. I mean, he was, I would say, not much of a factor. It was more the same. I think had 1 hit in the game, played 14 minutes. You know, I would not be surprised if they go back to either Nate Schmidt or potentially Declan Chisholm. I know Kenny and Rennie were talking about that. Although, man, putting Declan Chisholm in for the first time in Edmonton against the Oilers, who will be in an ornery mood tomorrow night, might be a tough spot. But again, it's the National Hockey League. Sink or swim and make the most of your opportunities. We'll be following that tomorrow from the morning skate in Edmonton. And we'll have some updates for you on the Winnipeg Sports Talk social channels. We are going to get to the Bombers because, of course, Jets Oilers tomorrow night is the 9:00 start, 6 p.m. IG Field. It's on. Bombers looking to clinch the West. Ed Tait coming up in just a minute. Hey, big shout out to Leighton Janis, the latest member, WST crew member, that's going to jump on and join the WST Movember team. If you are interested in, we've got a pretty good crew already. Derek's in, One Bird is in, Julian's in. So we're putting together a bit of a crew, and we'll try and get maybe a couple perks for Modern Man for you guys for doing that. But if you are interested in growing the stash, supporting men's health, and being part of our team for Movember, send us an email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com, and we'll be in touch and get that going for November. Of course, Modern Man, 8 locations in Winnipeg, including the newest locations on Pembina Highway or Plessis Road. The barbershops have a variety of grooming services, including haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Book your look via modernmanbarber.com and make an appointment today, and we appreciate them jumping on board and getting involved in the Movember promo as well. Hey, folks, you know Aquatech are the experts in pools. And while pool season's over, think about taking the plunge in 2024. They can help you with that and get started on that throughout the winter. But what you might not know is that whole home renovations start with Aquatech. With thousands of renos as their foundation, Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. And hey, big game tomorrow night. We are getting into playoff weather. Not quite here yet, but you know what that means. It's going to get a little chilly, and then the Winnipeg winter is going to be here. Manitoba Battery is ready to get you prepared for the upcoming Winnipeg winter. Hey, they powered us through the summer and all the fun stuff. Now it's time to survive. -30 and whatnot. If you need to test your battery, pop by and see them at 1026 Logan Avenue. They'll do that for you and let you know how you're looking heading into the winter. And if you need a new battery for your car or your truck, shop local with Manitoba Battery. Get the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores. The best thing about it is you won't even need to leave your home. Go to manitobabattery.com and order, or 783-8787. And Manitoba Battery will deliver your batteries for free anywhere inside the perimeter of Winnipeg at no charge with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. If you don't want to see him in person, pop by and see Donnie and his great staff at Manitoba Battery at 1026 Logan Avenue. Hey, big news for you Canadian club lovers. Just got a note from our pal James. $79.99 right now for a limited one-time release of the Canadian Club Invitation Series 15-year-old sherry cask. Find that at your local Manitoba liquor marts, and there will be another Invitation Series varieties released annually over the next few years. And again, if you want to grab those CC social passes for tomorrow's Bomber game, go to winnipegsportstalk.com, click on the link, the tickets link. Remo will send those out a little later on today. Also, if you're with us live in chat and you want to go to the game with Canadian Club, click that link and get entered. We'll send those tickets out a little later on today. Speaking of that Bomber game, let's go to our main man, Eddie Tait, down at IG Field as we get ready for kickoff tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Edward, always a pleasure to have you on the program. How are you, my friend? Oh, Remy, do you have Ed muted or?
No, hold on. Let me just refresh him.
Let's just do a quick refresh and get Eddie so we can actually hear. I think we're good now. Eddie, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We are all good. We are all good. Great to have you back on the program, Eddie. An interesting, I was hearing a quote from Coach O'Shea a little earlier. Let me just ask you this right off the bat. From your understanding, how much of what we see from the Bombers will depend on what happens tonight in BC Place?
It's a great question, because if the Lions don't win tonight, then the Bombers clinch first place before even taking the field tomorrow. So, the lineup is set. I'm staring at the depth chart right here. I guess what you would do is you might play around with the playing time with some of the guys here. Maybe Zach Caleros doesn't go a full 4 quarters, but the rosters are pretty limited. You might see some backups, but these guys are under the full expectation that they'll have to take care of business themselves tomorrow. That's no slight against Calgary tonight, but it's just when you prepare for a game, you prepare to, your kind of chips are all into the middle of the table to try to get it done yourself. So I think that's what will happen. But, again, if Calgary upsets BC tonight, it might impact some things. They won't say that now, but we might see it tomorrow a little bit.
And I still think, we will see the majority of the starters, I think, one way or the other, Ed, because, assuming that the Bombers, whether it's tonight before they even play or tomorrow, can get that win, clinch the division, it gives you far more options to rest key players in that final game against Calgary. But then there's also a bye, and I think there's always a bit of a concern about shutting it down too early and then having, literally 3 weeks, even more, in between game action when you're going into a game with the amount of importance that the West Final would hold.
Yeah, that's the old rest versus rust debate, right? And it's almost cliche in these parts because we've had that debate for a few years now with Winnipeg clinching first so much. One of the things that I've heard this week that's kind of interesting is that they want to take care of business this weekend, not only to get a rest for next week. The guy, everybody's banged up at this point. No matter how many bye weeks you've got, somebody's got a bruise or a wonky ankle or a sore shoulder, something, right? And so they all, you want the break for that. But a lot of the guys have said, we got a lot of guys on our practice roster, a lot of guys that are that dress but don't get a lot of reps, and they want to see them get reps next week in Calgary in a game, and the only way that happens is by taking care of business. So people are going to roll their eyes again because it sounds so cornball, but it really is about honoring your teammates. And then there's a lot of guys that want to see, maybe a Nick Howlett start at safety next week, or I'm just looking, maybe Johnny Augustine gets some more snaps at running back. You see backups, guys that are on the practice roster now that could get activated for next week. So That's something that I've heard this week in the locker room. It's about taking care of business, but let's get some of our other guys some work next week too.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't even think it would be a good thing for Calgary to win tonight. I mean, I kind of think that, one more important game for the Bombers to go out, as a unit, execute the way they would like to do in November, presumably when BC comes here, although obviously there is still a game to be played, in that West semi, would be good because of that time that we're going on. I have to ask you right off the bat, what do we know about Dalton Schoen? He's such an important part of this offense. Now, the Bombers have arguably the deepest receiving core we've ever seen here, or at least in a long, long time. So maybe they're set, if you will, to handle a loss of a player like that. But man, he's just been such a big, big part of the Bomber offense. I mean, to think about beating BC or winning the Grey Cup, you kind of need all hands on deck, and he is a very, very important piece of this offense.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of speculation since the BC game when he didn't finish. All I can tell you is that he is listed on the injury report with an ankle injury. He's been moved to the 1-game injured list, which is important because it means that you put a guy on the 6th game to save salary. So, but you're right. We're talking about a guy that's played 2 years in this league and has had 1,000 yards in both seasons, and his touchdowns to games played differential is unbelievable. I don't have it here in front of me, but the guy is a touchdown scoring machine. And you're right. Look, there's no way to kind of dance around this. You take a guy like that out of your lineup, and it's going to impact your offense. But it's been an interesting week because we've seen Brendan O'Leary, Orange, is listed as the starter in that spot now. He's Canadian, so that's another Canadian on the roster. It gives you a little bit more roster flexibility, but Greg McCrae's been activated, and he's had his moments as a running back, as a kick returner, as a receiver. Look, he's not Dalton Schoen, but there's something there. Zach Collaros just spoke to the media about an hour ago, Huss, and he was raving about the guy they called Nighthawk. When the quarterback speaks glowingly of you, that's a good sign. But I'm not going to dance around this. You take a guy like Dalton Schoen out of your lineup, and it's going to have an impact. So maybe in a way, and this is me painting the silver lining here, you get someone some reps tonight, and maybe Dalton is available next week. Maybe he's not. Then somebody gets some more work next week, and that helps you be prepared for the Western Final. Whereas if it happened, next week or even in the first quarter of the Western Final, then you're really scrambling to get somebody prepared. So it's tough because I think everybody loves the way Dalton Schoen plays. He can catch that tough pass over the middle. He's pretty dangerous in the open field, but he's such a crisp route runner too. And I don't think it's any coincidence that when things break down, it's often Dalton Schoen that Zach Collaros has been looking to on those busted plays, is because he knows how to get open. So it's a huge loss.
We're going to get into a little bit more on the visitors with Dustin Nielson, who's calling the game for TSN, and will be on his way to Winnipeg a little later on. He's coming up after Scott Billeck on the program. But Ed, in a lot of ways, this is a good test for the Bombers. I mean, we all remember how, the 2 games between these clubs. The Bombers were, I believe, down at halftime in their home game, and then we're down 22-0 before Drew Brown came in and saved the day a little earlier on. And I'm pretty sure you could make an argument that the Edmonton Elks, as of right now, might be the 3rd best team in the Western Division. This is a frisky team. They got nothing to play for, but I expect them to be going all out to, not only work for next year for jobs, but to try to give it to the Bombers and maybe get that win that's eluded them in 2 games that were a lot closer than a lot of people expected earlier this year.
Yeah, you've hit all the right notes there, Huss. It's a scary opponent to me. They are playing. I think they've lost 3 in a row, but they're playing some good ball lately. And the key to that is Trey Ford. It's shocking that they waited so long to hand the keys to the offense to this guy, because he is so dynamic. I did a story this week that's posted now with talking to Brandon Alexander and Richie Hall, Jackson Jeffcoat, about playing a quarterback like Trey Ford. And, they said, look, we've played running quarterbacks before. There's Dustin Crum and Taylor Cornelius with Edmonton, Vernon Adams Jr. in BC. They're all guys that can stretch plays and move around the pocket. Cameron Dukes did it with Toronto a couple weeks ago, but there's nobody like Trey Ford in this league. He runs a 4.4 40, and that's at a quarterback position. And I think of that play that we keep talking about here when Zach Collaros had his first start as a Blue Bomber, and he ran back and forth all over the place and then found Darvin Adams at the back of the end zone. Well, Trey Ford does that on almost every other play, right? Because he's got that kind of dynamic ability to make things happen with his legs and buy time. And I think he's become a better pocket passer, too. That's something that everybody needs to work on, thinks he needs to work on. Edmonton has got a loaded lineup. You're bang on, Huss. There's quite a few people that think they are the third best team in the division right now, which doesn't say a lot about Calgary and Saskatchewan, but they have an awful lot of talent. Again, Zach and his media availability just a little while ago was talking about what they have on defense. And, there's a lot of good players. That's what Chris Jones does. The mystery of what they might do tomorrow is also kind of a side story to this. Since you've got nothing to play for, if you're an Elks player and a coach, do you start trotting out all kinds of trick plays and things that you've saved in your playbook? So it's kind of a high alert game for the Bombers. Not only do you want to lock up first, but because of all those other elements that we were just talking about.
Ed, one other thing that I think could be beneficial for the Bombers in this game, now that you mentioned Trey Ford, I don't know whether this is an observation of my own and you can agree or disagree on it, but at certain points this year, the Bombers have had opportunities to get to quarterbacks, have been in the area, and then they've broken out for big plays, like 25, 30-yard runs that have really sort of shifted field position. Ford is always a threat to do that. And, knowing that VA is probably the guy you're going to be going up against in the West final, and we've seen what Chad Kelly can do from a scrambling perspective, in some ways, this could be a great preparation for those quarterbacks, for the Blue Bomber defense to maintain that contain and try to avoid big chunks courtesy of the feet of the opposition QB.
No, it's a good point. If you're playing a pocket passer right now, say a Trevor Harris or something, it would be a completely different look than what you're going to get in the West Final if you're expecting to see BC, because that's not the style at all of Vernon Adams Jr. That's part of the story, again, that I did this week about how do you prepare for a quarterback like Trey Ford, because the easy answer you get from a lot of fans, and myself included, and that's why we asked the questions this week, is this: why don't you just assign someone to spy him? Well, it's not as simple as that, because the minute Trey Ford starts to get that feel that there is someone spying him, then they counteract, right? They start to do different things. And as Richie Hall said earlier this week, when you start to do that, it's like doubling a receiver on one side. All of a sudden, that frees up all kinds of other things in the offense because you're paying extra attention to one side, and the offense can attack you differently. So the key to the Bombers in playing Trey Ford, and then you're right, down the road, whether it's probably going to be Vernon Adams, is that you just got to make him uncomfortable. And so that might be spying him on one series or one play, and then on the next series you're not. It might be that you blitz on one down on second and long, and then on the next time you're in that situation, you're dropping 9 into coverage, only rushing 3. That's what you'll see a lot of tomorrow, I think, when Winnipeg plays Edmonton. It's because whether it's a pocket passer or a guy like Trey Ford, you just don't want him to get into a rhythm and feel comfortable. We saw that in the BC game. In the first half, Vernon Adams was just slicing and dicing up the defensive secondary, and they would big blitzes, and he was beating them. They would drop a bunch, and he was beating them. Then in the second half, something changed, right? Their passing total was only about 100 yards, and 65 of it came on the one play at the end of regulation. That was, thankfully, Jamal Parker made that play to stop the potential game-winning touchdown. But that's what you want to see from your defense. You want to be dictating what is happening out there, and the way you do that is just by making the quarterback squirm a little bit because he doesn't know what he's seeing across the line of scrimmage.
We talked about Schoen being out and how things are looking up front on the offense. What about the defensive depth chart right now? Any changes? Any guys nicked up?
Yeah, the most notable thing, Huss, is that Demario Houston is still going to sit this week. He's been on 1 game injured. He missed the BC game. He's again on the 1 game injured. Leads the league in interceptions. So Jamal Parker gets a second start there, and then the rest looks the same to me. And again, knock on wood, the Bombers have been remarkably healthy. Here we are, the second last game of the year. And as unfortunate it is that Dalton Schoen can't go, the changes from last week, the last game's depth chart to this depth chart are just one. Dalton Schoen out and Greg McRae in, and that says something about the collective health of this bunch.
Lots of great stuff over at bluebombers.com. Great 48-hour primer from Ed on tomorrow's game, which you should check out. 2 things I wanted to get to from bluebombers.com. First of all, tell us about we had the big gala this weekend, and the money man, Justin Medlock, going into the Hall of Fame. I'm sure that was a great night, and great to have a guy that has just was everything the Bombers could have asked for and more when they brought him over to do the job.
Well, the legacy dinner, the gala, it was spectacular. It's from what Wade Miller said when he got up to address the crowd, it's the first time it's been sold out, and that's kind of a trend around here lately. With this, tomorrow it's going to be the 4th straight sellout too. It was so very well done. People had a lot of fun. And when you talk about Justin Medlock, Money Medlock, he got up there. And, Justin was around the team from 2016 to 19. And, he was a star, right? But I'll tell you, he was not on the all-interview team, right? He was not the best interview. After a win, I can remember that game in Labor Day. He hit the game-winning field goal. So you're trying to get some emotion, and it's just, he shrugs his shoulders, just doing my job. Game-winning field goal, right? There's no emotion, kind of a robot. But he got up there, and his speech was hilarious. He talked about when he used to come to Winnipeg when he was with Toronto and Hamilton, and he hated kicking at Old Canadian Stadium. Like he said, the goalposts seemed to be crooked. The wind was howling all over. And he told a story about his first practice as a Blue Bomber. He had a horrible day, and he could look over and saw the special teams coach, Paul Boudreau, saying, "We spent all this money on this guy. He's terrible." But he told some great stories. He told a story about running a fake against Coach O'Shea when O'Shea was the special teams coordinator in Toronto. So he had people on the edge of their seats with his speech. It was really, really well done. So it's kind of cool to see a guy like that go into the Hall of Fame. So well deserving.
Well, and the Bombers in a good spot with Sergio Castillo has had a very, very strong year, filling those big shoes. Obviously, Mark Liggio was in between. One other thing I wanted to get to, and I'll be honest, I wasn't that familiar with Tanner Cadwallader, who has been mainly a special teams demon for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But there's a piece up and a very great time to do this, considering what month it is. The In My Words about his mother. I mean, maybe just give people a bit of a tease on that, and they should go to bluebombers.com and check it out.
Yeah, there's a couple things on the site that we're pretty proud of. First of all, Buck Pierce, whose wife Lori has twice battled cancer. There's a video up of him speaking about that, and how the difficulties of going through that and how tough his wife is. The piece that you're talking about with Tanner Cadwallader, In My Words, it's, I knew that he had lost his mom to cancer a few years ago. And then when we sat down to put this piece together, man, I was in tears. Well, both of us were. He's talking about how powerful his mom is. Tanner was at Western playing college ball when he first found out that his mom had cancer, and he stayed the year at Western, but it was 2.5 hours from his hometown of Georgetown, Ontario. So he transferred to Wilfrid Laurier. She went into remission, and she got to see him play a couple of important games, including a playoff loss to Laval. And then she got cancer again, or it had spread, and that was the last game. She didn't see him play as a pro, but just the way he talks about his mom and his impact on her and on other people, it's worth the read. I don't usually toot what we do too much on our site. I'm very proud of it, but I don't like bumping our chest, or as Claude Noel would say, I don't want to separate a shoulder, pat myself on the back. So it's really worth the chance. If you can just spare 5 minutes to go take a read, it kind of gives you a real good perspective on things.
Yeah, no, it is it's a powerful piece. You learn a lot about a player that I don't think a lot of people know about. And obviously in a month like this, some important conversations to have. And I think it was something that, was incredibly well done. Eddie, I guess all that's left to do is kick your feet up and maybe grab a cold one and watch this football game tonight and see how that impacts tomorrow at 6.
I'll be having it on PVR. Bison's men basketball plays a preseason game tonight against Brandon. I got to go watch my kid play. So
how's the squad looking? How's Kirby and the boys shaping up for this year?
They're going to be solid. We'll see. It's a tough conference, but the hustling herd should be hustling.
Love it, Eddie. Thanks so much for doing this. Good luck to the squad tomorrow, and congratulations to the organization. Another full house, 4 in a row. These are good times down at IG Field right now for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and all that's left to do is book that West Final officially, and they can do that tomorrow with a win. Thanks again to Eddie Tait for jumping on. We're going to switch over from the Bombers to a little more Jets talk. Scott Billeck is joining us right away. Don't forget, gang, if you're listen, there's been lots of talk about the attendance and all that. Had some great conversations with people in the concourse last night. And, I'd say it was certainly a bit more positive yesterday. I mean, there was definitely a level of shock with what we saw on Tuesday. It'll be something that we'll continue to talk about. I see the chat, and I mean, there's some wild takes out there, a lot of stuff that actually is just not factually correct, but we won't digest all of that. It's hard to pay attention when we're talking about other things. This will be definitely a topic going forward. But if you're on the fence or thinking about getting to a game, big one coming up on Tuesday in the division against the St. Louis Blues. And this, don't forget, is part of that Super Tuesday in the NHL where all teams are playing and every game is staggered by 15 minutes. So a special start time of 7:45 at Canada Life Center on Tuesday when the Jets take on the Blues. And obviously tickets are available for that. And of course, if you're thinking that maybe you'd like to jump on with some sort of a package, I'm sure the Jets would be more than happy to help you out with that. You can go to winnipegjets.com for more information on all of that. Let me give a big shout out and thanks to our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market. If you're looking for great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, groceries, and Winnipeg's largest selection of local products too, get on down to one of 6 Vita Health Fresh Market stores, or you can shop online at myvita.ca. Orders in by 11 a.m. will be delivered citywide the same day. And right now, get a free gift when you place an order of $100 or more at myvita.ca. And of course, there's a lot of stress around these days. It's back to school, the upcoming holidays. You can try Health First Ashwagandha Supreme, known for its stress-lowering effects and helping reduce mental stress, anxiety, cortisol level, and even stress-related food cravings. And it's on sale all month at Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations and online at myvita.ca. Wow, what a summer it's been for our friends over at Wallace & Wallace. You know that they're the fencing leaders in town. You've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. What you might not be aware of, though, is that they're also the leader in overhead garage doors as the Clopay dealer in Manitoba with the largest selection of overhead garage doors in the province. And that door had a lot of ups and downs this summer, and it's about to work a whole lot harder coming up this winter because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Give Wallace & Wallace a call to book your inspection and maintenance service. Call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And again, you can pop by and see them at their office space, Lawson Road, just off of Route 90. And big shout out to the gang down at F Apparel. Got a chance to see Andrew Parks' parents at the game last night. Wonderful people. Worked with his mother on the World Women's Hockey Championship. But Andrew, Alex, and the gang at F are the go-to guys for menswear in Winnipeg. And fellas, if you're looking in your closet realizing you need to step up your menswear game as we head towards the holidays, you need to get on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you are getting married, good luck with that. Or if you're in a wedding party, Make sure to talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount when you and the fellas get done up for the big day at F Apparel. You can pop down and see them at 190 Smith Street downtown. Find out more online and make an appointment to pop in and see him at F. That's EPH apparel.com. All right. Jets and Oilers tomorrow night. A battle of 1 and 3 teams. Both teams losing last night. One maybe in a more disappointing fashion than the other. Let's look ahead to that and get the latest on the local club with Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. Billeck, what's going on?
What's going on, man? I got my grocery shopping done this morning. Feeling fresh. Feeling good. Yeah. Good to get that out of the way early on a Friday. Always
nice.
love that.
What did you get, like normal adult food, or was it basically like a Huss order? A bunch of frozen pizzas, Diet Pepsi?
There was a couple frozen pizzas. There was an extra one of these, an extra 2 of these. At least it's somewhat healthy, right? Like it's 0 sugar. I don't know.
That's what we.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you got the Diet Pepsi there. Whatever, aspartame is what it is. But yeah, no, there's a couple frozen pizzas. I finally decided to try these Rustica ones. It's like, I guess, what was the other one? The one that went away, was it like Delicio or whatever? Like
Yes.
that's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying this Rustica one.
Is
which
that the
apparently
Superstore
replaced
one?
it. No, it's at Walmart.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't afford to. Well, no, I guess Superstore's just as cheap, but
On a down
yeah.
day, maybe going into the holidays, I'll have to update my frozen pizza rankings. We haven't done a frozen pizza power
that's-
poll in a while.
that'd be awesome. Like I won't lie. I mean, people have seen how big I am. So I've eaten a few frozen pizzas in my time. is all I'm
It's
saying.
a few areas of expertise in life. That's one of them. So
I was
get
gonna
on
say,
it.
if you want to do a frozen pizza poll, I'd be all for it.
Hey, let's get to. I mean, obviously, I want to talk about this game tomorrow and the what we expect to see, the challenge for the Jets going into face what will, in all likelihood, be a very ornery Edmonton Oilers team. But listen, we spent a lot of time talking about the disappointment of Tuesday, the Velarde injury, the crowd, the Kings squeezing the Jets in those final 2 periods.
Yeah.
What did you make of the way they played for 60 minutes last night against Vegas, albeit in a losing cause?
Yeah, I think it's weird, Huss, because I think like the Jets are doing a lot of things right on the ice, but the problem is the things that they're doing wrong are just costing them valuable points right
Big
now.
time.
And I think it's a weird spot to be in, because I think when you look at the downfall last season or the year before that or whatever, like you could point to areas of this team, many of them that were, different than what this year. Like this team this year is in the top third in expected goals through 4 games, the top third, I think they're top 5 in terms of puck possession. But now it's the goaltending, right? They've allowed, 19 goals now, I believe, in 4 games. They have the league worst goals against average, the league worst team save percentage right now. Like those aren't things that we were used to talking about with this team, right? And so you go into that Vegas game, and I gave, part of my lead in my story last night was like, you got to give the Jets credit. Like they could have packed it in down 3-1 against the defending Stanley Cup champions last night. And then Cole Perfetti catches, the Jets kind of just caught Vegas sleeping a little bit off of the ensuing faceoff after Alec Martinez's 3rd goal. And Perfetti and Nemestikov and Ehlers really too, that line made a great, play to put a puck in the back of the net, and then they're back into it, right? So this team didn't lay down and quit like we've sseen them do in the past.
Dare we say there was some pushback in the 3rd?
Well, and that's it, right? I mean, we're seeing things that here at the in the infancy of this season that are good. And that I think for Jets fans, it's a sight for sore eyes to see some of these things taking place. But then there's still problems. There's almost like new problems, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I don't expect Connor Hellebuyck to be in the basement in a lot of these stats like he is right now over, an 82 game season. Like it is a worst start of his career over 3 starts. But he generally hasn't really started all that well at times and has picked it up over time. Brossoit, and then what do you do? Like, do you actually blame the goalies for some of the goals that are getting scored? Because I think if we're going to look at something that's carried over through a lot of this, it's the defense that just hasn't been good enough. And so while you do have, Mark Scheifele's line back checking, or you have really good defensive, posture from some of the other lines on this team, I still think that the defense on this team, on the blue line at least, just hasn't been up to snuff yet. And so there is that. I mean, if you're going to point to one thing that's kind of carried over, it is that. But But I agree. Like I think there's offensive capabilities on this team. We saw it last night. I think they do have a desire to get back into games this year, or like early on. Like I think there's always been a desire, but they have the ability, I guess, to do that. Even with Gabe Balharry out last night, I thought the forward lines looked really good. I believe the analytics back up all of what I'm saying right now. Again, outside of that Los Angeles game on Tuesday where the Jets kind of got caved in a little bit, the Jets have been really good. And so, it's sort of strange, right? I mean, it's hard to kind of, you can't really crap on the team because they've played pretty generally well. But they're still 1-3-0 to start the year. So it's tough. And they're going into Edmonton against an ornery team that's also with the same record and just got, crap kicked by the Philadelphia Flyers. And so, it's a weird one.
The first two games against, the 8-1 embarrassment to start it off, and then following that up with a loss at home, of which Casey DeSmith was a huge, huge part of. We're going to talk about the Oilers and that game last night and where things are at with them with Dustin Nielson coming up. But to me, you sort of nailed it, and I went through this off the top of the program. There's a lot of things that the Jets seem to be much better at and are doing a much better job of. And, I think I give a lot of credit to the forward lines and the way things are clicking there.
Yeah.
But, the combination of defensive gaffes, goaltending, which hasn't been anywhere near the standard that has been set here. And obviously that's been a big part of the penalty kill woes, which have hurt the Winnipeg Jets. And again, we're talking about 4 games. It's basically been a week. So you would hope that is a blip, but it won't really matter. I don't think this team is set to win 7-6 games. So if they can't, do a better job of helping their netminders out, first of all, without, handing over glorious chances and, the turnovers and giveaways that we've seen that have been really, really problematic and were on display last night. None of that is going to matter. But to me, the guy, I'm going to be there in the rink tomorrow night in Edmonton. I'm looking at one guy to sort of lead the way, and that's 37. He's going to be back in after getting a few days of rest. Didn't even see him. I'm not sure if he returned to the bench later on last night, but I know he wasn't there in the first period.
He doesn't often sit on the bench for home games.
He's just kicking it in the back.
He doesn't. Brossoit does. Riddick did, but he does not. He likes to stay loose in the thing, so that's not abnormality or anything like that. He just doesn't do it. So.
Well, hopefully he was just mentally preparing for what will be a big-time challenge tomorrow, because as bad as the Oilers have looked for the most part this year, they came in and they thumped Nashville, as they always do, 6-1 earlier this week, but followed that up with a 3-1 stinker last night to the Philadelphia Flyers. One in which, they weren't very engaged. They didn't do much in the third period. Even got a F-bomb out of Jay Woodcroft. Yeah. So this is, listen, I think if the Jets continue to do a lot of the things that they've been doing well, they'll give themselves a chance to win. But their best players need to be their best player. And their best player, as far as I'm concerned, for the last number of years has been Connor Hellebuck. He hasn't been up to his usual level of excellence right now. And it would be a great time tomorrow for this hockey club and this fan base if he could get back to being that guy that was a finalist for the Vezina last week, because even if the Oilers aren't playing their best, the talent that they're rolling out on that top line, on that top power play, is going to make you need to be right at the top of your level if you want to compete. Never mind win that hockey game.
Yeah, and the Jets don't want to become the team that gets Edmonton going again, right? Like, I think the Jets want to be the team that uses Edmonton to get themselves going again. You know what I mean? Like, Edmonton's having the same issues. They're having goaltender issues, right? They still have defensive issues in Edmonton. That's part of, the problem that Edmonton's had for the last, couple of seasons. Probably what's really kind of kept them from turning into that Stanley Cup champion, even, if you will, of a team, because they have two of the best players. They have the best player in the world. And then you could argue they also have the second best player in the world. There's an argument that Draisaitl's that good, and he's shown it over his career. And those guys are itching, right? They're itching. So they need Connor Hellebuck to come in and give them. You look at this team right now, and you're like, if they had average goaltending right now, they could be 4-0, right? And so like that's, the LA game, it was bad, so maybe they'd be 3-1. But either way, like, I mean, if you just had average goaltending right now and a little bit of better defensive play, the record's probably flipped, right? So I think that's, if you're looking for a silver lining right now or something positive or whatever amongst all the stuff that's going on with this team at the moment, it is like it's not like they're struggling in these games outside of the Kings game. They've played really well. They probably deserve to win in Calgary, but they got goalied. And there's a good case that they should have probably. Well, it was a good case that they were in the mix last night.
Logan Thompson
and Logan Thompson makes
absurd.
A paddle save and then one off the blocker, right? Like he made 2 incredible saves in that game, where the Jets should have been, probably up 3-1 instead of down 3-1. So it's just, it happens that way. That's the way it goes. It's hockey. But I mean, you can't really use that excuse for too long, right? Like. I think that the naysayers would have said the Jets could finish 1-4 on their first 5 games before they visit the lowly Blues, they welcome the lowly Blues next Tuesday, and that's a very real possibility now, right? And so they need to go into Edmonton tomorrow night and kind of shake off kind of what's happened to them, and yeah, you're right. I mean, you shouldn't be talking about Hellebuyck needing rest or anything like that, but maybe just a chance to kind of reset himself after some games that he's probably not too happy with.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, Bones had said earlier, and I kind of was expecting the opposite of this, that, if say LA and Vegas were flipped on the schedule, that, LB may have gone on Tuesday and come back with Hellebuyck tonight, but they wanted to run Helly in the first 3 games. Obviously a 1-2 record. LB got the start last night. Listen, it's undeniable that the Jets have had the second best goalie in all 4 of their games right now, and that certainly does need to change. It'll be a big opportunity tomorrow night. I wanted to ask you about Nikolai Ehlers. From my perspective, he looked a lot more in the second half of yesterday's game like the Nick Ehlers that is such an impactful player. And I guess it makes sense that, he basically wasn't around training camp at all, and maybe you get a bit of a mulligan. This team's not going to win the games that they need to if they don't have Nikolai Ehlers playing at a much better level. But, I mean, really good signs I think we saw with his play throughout last night, and actually got rewarded on it as well with a couple of big points.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 things here, Huss. Like, one is he missed pretty much all of training camp, right? I mean, you said it. I mean, he missed pretty much all of training camp. He didn't play in a single game. Most of his skates were IR skates. And when he got in with the team, it was, there were some, but he wasn't, you could tell he wasn't pushing as hard, and because it wasn't asked to, right? I mean, he was just trying to manage the neck injury that he had. And the second thing is, I think now you move Vlad Nestikov next to him. Rick Bowness talked glowingly yesterday, and the reason why that they put Nestikov to second line center is because of the chemistry that him and Ehlers had. And that was on display last night. I mean, I thought that line looked really good. I thought Cole Perfetti played a really good game last night. And not that he hadn't played well at center, but, this team, obviously with the Velarde injury, has to figure out and move some stuff around. It was a good decision to put Nemestikov up there. I think people, I was seeing yesterday, it's like, well, Jets are in a bad spot if they have to have Nemestikov as their second line center. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I think
a big part of that,
good job.
I think a big part of that, to be honest, is trying to get Ehlers going. I mean, Ehlers hadn't been going. There was absolutely no doubt. And I mean, again, we're talking about small sample sizes, but I mean, Ehlers is a very unique player. And we've seen him play with some of the best players that the Winnipeg Jets have had come through, and it really hasn't clicked. Yeah. And I think they sort of leaned on the fact that when those players played together last year during some injuries, Nemestikov seemed to really get Ehlers going and open it up for him. And I think we saw that develop through. And as far as for Perfetti goes, I mean, thank God he scored that goal on a beautiful setup from Nemestikov. Very, very clever.
You could see how much it meant to him, too.
Oh, my God.
The celebration was like, it was like, I don't know, he didn't really throw the monkey off his back, I guess. But, like, you could tell he was pretty damn happy to score that goal.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
after that save in the first period, never mind what had happened earlier this season. I mean, you can't say that they haven't been getting their chances.
and good for Perfetti for keeping his head and wits about him, right? I mean, you could. I mean, it hasn't been. I wouldn't say it's a tough start for Perfetti, but the center experiment hasn't gone as planned. He got drilled from behind last game again. I mean, this guy is just a magnet for bad hits. And so, like, you could tell he's a little down. And I don't know if he's down on himself or whatever, or he's just down on his luck, maybe. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't really talked to him about it, but you could tell he's just like, yeah, that goal meant a ton for him. Been a long time since he scored. And yeah, I mean, he's been through a lot over the last 3 seasons. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think that Cole, and I asked Rick Bowness about this yesterday. I don't think Cole Perfetti is going to take it as, I mean, not as much of a negative as you probably could. Like, I think he understands why he's being moved back out to the wing. And part of that could be, as you said, getting Nikolai Ehlers going and just getting some offense from that line. Worked last night, right? I mean, they score a goal. It's a big goal. Obviously, it was a good answer after going down 3-1. That's what you want. That's what you want from that second line, because you need to depend on it. I thought obviously the third line looks tremendous. Whether you have Niederreiter, I'm surprised Niederreiter wasn't put on the top line, if we're being honest. But they looked good last night, obviously with Alex Iafallo and Adam Lowry. That line's unbelievable.
That's the best. That's the best company for Adam Lowry he's maybe ever had in his career.
And good for Adam Lowry finally, when he was he was basically the gatekeeper for guys moving up the lineup, right? Like, it was either this guy's going to be good or he's going to be bad, and we're going to let Adam kind of deal with it. And now Adam just has a line where he can just play hockey again, right? And I think that's what's allowed him. And I'll say one other thing: Rasmus Kupari. I thought he was sensational last night. Like, here's the thing with Kupari. He might not be whatever, like, he might not be the flashiest player or whatever, but he shoots the puck. He puts the puck on goal. And I keep thinking, like, when's the last time this team had a fourth line center with speed, the tenacity, the willingness to shoot the puck? I thought he was good with Gustafsson last night. Like, Gustafsson hasn't played yet this year, but I think Gus had a good game. The Gus bus was rolling again. I think that fourth line is actually pretty good. And so... And I think a large part of it is Kupari. Never mind, he's a good penalty killer. I think you could put him on the second unit power play if you wanted to, because he likes to shoot and has a pretty good shot and his speed. So yeah, like, I mean, like I said, off the top here, like, I think this Jets team is doing a lot of good things. It's just shooting itself, like, as Rick Bowness said last night, the shots that the bullets they're putting into their feet right now are crippling them at this point, and that's really the difference between wins and losses so far.
Yeah, you gotta definitely clean that up going up against a team like the Edmonton Oilers. And I'll say one thing. I mean, like, I know some people kind of were on Appleton and the decision to put him up there. I thought he, like, as always, he's busting his ass. He's got to be a dog out there. Is he Gabriel Velarde? Definitely not. But if they do make a change, I would love to just see them simply swap Appleton and Kupari, move Gus to center on that fourth line, because, to be honest, and I think we'll see this tomorrow night in Edmonton, I'm expecting to see this, a ton of Adam Lowry, Nino Niederreiter, and Alex Iafallo going up against those top teams. And that line is presently constructed, has the opportunity to spend a lot more time in the other team's end. And as we saw with Iafallo last night, and the myriad of chances that Nino's had so far this season, the ability to create some offense. It should be an interesting one. Scotty, great stuff, and we didn't even have to talk about attendance today. We'll get to that, I'm sure, at some point next week. A little bit better last night, but still a lot of work to be done. You have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll catch up next week.
Yeah, it sounds good, Huss. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. There's Scotty Billeck. You can read all of his work, along with Ted Freezer and the gang in the Winnipeg Sun. Well, we had a great conversation with Ed Tait. Bombers tomorrow. Fourth straight sellout. What a season that this team has had in the stands, and hopefully they can continue doing what they've been doing on the field to get back to the Grey Cup and get that cup back to Winnipeg. Princess Auto tailgate party gets going tomorrow at 4 p.m. $3.50 pop, $3.50 hot dogs, $5 beers. Get in there early, get loud, and get ready to watch the Bombers hopefully officially clinch the Western Division title again in the Canadian Football League. Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers and WST. and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. I know Joe and probably Spicy and the gang will be out at that game. It's the weekend, but they've been working hard at Consolidated Supply with so many products and services to help you, your property, and your business. Consolidated Supply are the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, and golf cars and vehicles. From the Club Car Collection is the exclusive dealer in Manitoba. They've also got other great options for your property, including hot tubs, which might come in handy this winter, and amazing outdoor kitchens. And they're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Pop by and see Consolidated Supply at their showroom, open to the public. They're at 1395 Niagara Road East, or you can find out more online at their website at cte.ca. Well, big Bomber game tomorrow. Jets season in full effect right now. If you need to up your fan gear, you know where to go. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Tons of Bomber gear, especially as it gets a little colder. Toques, scarves, and more for that run to the Grey Cup. And thousands of pieces of Winnipeg Jets merchandise, all the new jerseys, customized as you want with your favorite player right now. Also got a great NFL selection with all 32 NFL teams. Raptors coming up just around the corner, international soccer. And hey, the hockey's back. Hockey season well underway at all levels. And Royal Sports for 40 years has been the undisputed hockey superstore in town. For all your needs, they're waiting for you. 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram as well, at Royal Sports Pembina. Hey, what a great night tomorrow. Many of you will be going to IG Field to watch the Bombers wrap up the West, hopefully. And then as soon as that game's over, why don't you head on down to your local BP post-game, if you're not doing a doubleheader there, to watch the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, happy hour prices in effect between 9 and 12, which just happens to be the start of the game. And you'll be able to chow down on all the great new Appy features as well, not to mention ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and the latest from the BP feature menu. Staying at home, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, Hacksaw coming up in a minute. We will get to, a few minutes. We're going to get to the NFL notebook. We, of course, will have the marble race. But with me going to Edmonton, Dusty coming to Winnipeg, Bombers and Elks, Jets and Oilers, how could we not have our pal Dustin Nielson from TSN and Edmonton Sports Talk join us today on WST? Dusty, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Kind of a bizarre weekend. Huss and Dusty trading places, if you will, and a lot of Edmonton Winnipeg sports talk to get to. So a perfect time to have you on before you jump on a plane and come out here. And I head out to your spot. Looking forward to the weekend.
That's so bizarre. It's just so weird. Like, I'm coming to Winnipeg, you're coming, and I'm going out there for a football game, and you're coming out here for a hockey game. It's like worlds just didn't align right on this one. But hopefully we see two good games on both fronts. We'll see how it plays out.
Let's start off with the hockey teams, because both in similar situations. The Jets at times have played quite well, haven't had the results. Where are the Oilers, other than having their coach drop an F-bomb last night after a loss to the Philadelphia Flyers of all teams?
Yeah, it's not a good spot to be in right now. I mean, I thought, when they started 0-2 against Vancouver, the first game against Vancouver was awful. And they didn't deserve any better than the spanking that they got. Second game against Vancouver, they actually had like 40 shots on goal, and Casey DeSmith was outstanding. Probably deserved a little bit of a better result in that one. And then the game against Nashville, they always own Nashville. Like, Leon Draisaitl scores a goal per game against Nashville. It's a given. They usually beat Nashville by 2 or more. So we cashed some tickets on that one. And then I thought they would use that to actually sort of get on track. I thought that Nashville game was going to push them in the right direction. And then they go out to Philly and just lay an egg. Like, it was not good from the very beginning of that hockey game. And I know Philly was coming in off that shutout of the Canucks. So, I mean, maybe Philly's not as much of a train wreck as they were last year. But still, when you look at that roster on paper compared to the Oilers on paper, the Edmonton Oilers should win that hockey game 9 times out of 10. This was the one that they didn't. And, the first 2 periods, there was some effort there. The third period starts, they're down by 2. They're down 3-1. And they went through the motions. Like they had 4 shots on goal, down 2 against Philly, who has a blue line that 3 guys, the average hockey fan, probably don't even know who they are. And they only could muster up 4 shots on goal. So it was a horrible game. Evander Kane hasn't done anything yet this year. Bouchard was a train wreck last night. He just physically wasn't engaged. Jack Campbell had one that he probably liked back last night, but the other 3, I don't think he should have stopped. And even on the power play, I mean, a power play that's usually deadly, Connor McDavid tries a little drop pass back towards the blue line, gets picked off, and Sean Walker walks down the wing and snipes one to put them up 3-1. I mean, you think they're getting a power play, maybe tie it at 2. Instead, it's 3-1, and that was the biggest moment in the game last night. After that, they just really never recovered. And then, as you mentioned, Woodcroft after the game, who's usually very composed, drops an F-bomb, apologizes shortly after, but they can tell us, I'm not frustrated. But when Jay Woodcroft's dropping F-bombs after a 1-3 start, I think you're a little frustrated, Huss.
How's the captain doing? 97. This is not. Listen, this team was a Stanley Cup favorite going in. He's got high expectations. The team has high expectations. Can't imagine Connor's too pleased with the way his team's come out of the gate.
I don't think he's pleased. He was pretty composed post game last night. He had a run in yesterday with
coach.
Yeah, unlike the coach. Him and Kane collided yesterday, and everybody held their breath for a moment because he kind of got up and was stretching on his leg, went to the bench. Then they scored. The other team scored actually shortly after. He was pretty composed last night. Like the weird thing is that like this, like pretty much, we talked about it a month ago. I think you were mocking. It's like they pretty much had everybody in town like 2 weeks before training camp doing captain skates. Like everybody was here. It's like, oh, they're focused. They're ready to go. And it really has been the exact opposite. Like the last 2 years, they've started 9-1 and 7-3. And now they're 1-3 coming out of the gate this year. And maybe the most bizarre thing about last night is that Connor McDavid didn't even have a shot on goal last night. Yeah, he didn't even have a shot on goal and had a turnover that led to the insurance marker in the hockey game. So, I would expect he probably cranks things up a notch on Saturday. But this is the issue that they went down. They started 0-2. So then they put McDavid and Draisaitl together to get the win. And they get the win. Mm-hmm. But then they come out and lay a dud. And now like your big move always is to go back to McDavid and Draisaitl. Now coming off a loss, I would think you probably split them up again and you're kind of back to square one. So we'll see. Like it'll be interesting here. If they I know it's early, but if they lose to Winnipeg and start the year 1-4, people are going to be losing their mind in this city.
Well, that's the crazy thing about Saturday's game is that I think you're going to have major angst and at least one of those fan bases on Sunday. And I think that a win, I mean, listen, if Winnipeg was able to go into Edmonton and win to get to 2-3, come back for St. Louis, I think it'd be a pretty positive start to the week. But it's the exact same thing on the other side. I mean, for how well the Jets have played at times this year, they're still 1-3. They're still figuring it out without Gabriel Velarde, who's now out for 4 to 6 weeks. The second line is certainly in progress. There's a lot of work to it, although Nikolai Ehlers looked better in the second half. But for game number 5 of the season, it is sort of hilarious, but we should be seeing 2 desperate hockey clubs on Saturday night at Rogers Arena.
Yeah, I think so. We had Mike Johnson on the Nielsen show this morning, and we talked a little bit about, the Winnipeg Jets, and I mean, you can kind of clarify this one on me. Philadelphia, like, I don't know, maybe it's just John Trotter. Like, Philly didn't give up much last night. I'll give Philly credit. It's not like the Oilers got goalied. Could be that Philly just kind of sucked the life out of that hockey game, took advantage of some opportunities themselves. One thing MJ said this morning on our show was that Winnipeg's a team that has been given a bunch of shots. Like, you should be able to generate chances against the Winnipeg Jets. So if that's true and this thing gets opened up a little bit, I think that's probably a good for the Edmonton Oilers, as long as Stuart Skinner, who I'm thinking is probably going to get the start on Saturday, as long as he kind of finds his game a little bit. Because if things open up and Hellebuck's at one end and the Oilers have a struggling Stuart Skinner at the other end, that might not go over extremely well. Because when the Oilers open things up, guess what? They're extremely dangerous in their own end too, which could make to a really nice over on Saturday night. We'll see.
I'll say this. I mean, I'm looking forward to a fun and exciting game, regardless of which way it goes. And, it's ironic that Mike would say that because, last night the Jets outshot Vegas. I think it was 38-25. The first 2 games of the season, I mean, when you put together the expected goals and the shots and chances generated, they were number 1 in the league. These certainly weren't that way against the Los Angeles Kings. They had a nice period and then had 2 real rough periods. But I think the Jets overall feel like they played 10 quality periods out of 12 for the most part. But
which is more than you can say about the Oilers. Like, we can't say that about Edmonton, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the expectations are so much higher for Edmonton, and that's with the questions. The thing is, last night, the Jets still have a knack for massive mistakes, turnovers, and the Edmonton Oilers are a team that will make you pay. But you mentioned Stuart Skinner. One of the things that, unfortunately, that's normally a calling card of the Winnipeg Jets is having the best goalie on the ice. And Connor Hellebuck had a rough first week. Laurent Brossoit made some good saves last night, but, unfortunately took the loss. So I think everyone is going to be looking for a big bounce back game from Hellebuck, and he'll be up for a game like this against the Oilers. We were talking all offseason about the goaltending situation. Stuart Skinner. Of course, we had the infamous will Jack Campbell start the opener bet on Coolbet in the lock shop that came through. Where are things at right now with the goaltending? Because, I mean, listen, when you start off getting pumped 8-1, it's probably not a great start for either guy, but is there a number one right now? Has either guy separated himself, or have both guys been somewhat concerning?
No, I would think, I don't think this team will ever have a number one. I think it will always kind of go back and forth between these two, but there is no debate that Jack Campbell has been better than Stuart Skinner so far. Even going back to the preseason, read what you want into the preseason, but Jack Campbell had a really nice preseason. Stuart Skinner had a so-so preseason. That first game of the year where they both played, Jack Campbell, I didn't blame him. I think they kind of yanked him after 4, just like as a mercy pull in the first game. Skinner came in. He let in a couple of goals I think he'd like to have back. He started the next game, only had a .750 save percentage. So then they go to Campbell. Campbell was excellent against Nashville. I know they won 6-1, but Campbell was actually arguably the best player they had on the ice that night. He was outstanding. And then they went back to Campbell last night. And like I said, I mean, 3 of the 4, I don't necessarily think he should have had. So Jack Campbell has been the best goalie so far. Stuart Skinner has now allowed 8 goals and has a save percentage of .750 in 1.5 games. So this is a big, they'll go to Stuart Skinner on Saturday. He needs to have a big one, because so far this year, he looks like a guy who might be hit by the old sophomore slump, after being a Calder nominee last year. So, if that happens with Skinner, they're going to need Jack Campbell to have a really nice year. And the way he's played so far, Jack Campbell looks like he's going to have a better year than he had last year.
Dustin Nielson from Edmonton Sports Talk's with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, getting ready for Jets Oilers on Saturday. And we're going to get to Bombers Elks in just a minute. I do want to ask you, though, about the expectations for this team. Because, I mean, you've covered this team for a long time, doing the AM Nasty on the old station and now on EST. How different, if at all, listen, they've had Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Everyone knew that the talent has been there for the last number of years. But it seemed like this was the year that the expectations had finally risen to the point that anything other than winning the West and being in the Cup final and winning it would probably be a bit of a disappointment. And now you've got this start. How would you categorize the expectations and how the team has handled it through training camp and up until this point?
Well, we had Wyshynski on this morning as well, and he picked the Edmonton Oilers to win the Stanley Cup.
A lot of people
First of all, a lot of people did. Myself, and I think I declared them they're going to win on like September 16th. I was like, today's the day. The Edmonton Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup. But I did give Wyshynski a chance to back out today. I said, listen, 1-3 in the first 4. If you want to change your pick, you can change your pick. He goes, no, I'm going to stick with them. Part of me is wondering if this is them trying to deal with expectations. Like everybody has said, like the last few years, some people have picked them, but they weren't the Stanley Cup favorite heading into the season, which they are this year in a lot of places where you looked. So, maybe it was a fool's decision to say that they would win the Stanley Cup, because the only thing they did in the offseason was add Connor Brown, who hadn't played hockey in a year. Right? Like they pretty much ran it back outside of also removing Yamamoto, also removing Klim Kostin, not having Nick Bjugstad, who they got at the deadline last year, and people are already calling for them to trade back again at the deadline this year to bring him back as well. The blue line is still the same. The goaltenders are still the same. And that was an issue for the team last year. So I know it's super early. They're going to win a bunch of games on the strength of their power play again, but they're going to be in the playoffs. And it all comes back around to, are you different than you were last year? And the roster this year compared to the one that they ended the season with last year isn't better. Like it's not as deep. So I maybe an unfair hype train to get going, but you just look at what Connor McDavid does. And you're like, how does this guy not deliver a championship at some point in his career? All of these all-time greats eventually do. And, they certainly have the pieces around him to do it, but they're just not going right now.
I did catch a quite humorous post-game call in Edmonton last week suggesting that maybe Draisaitl in a first could get Casey DeSmith out of Vancouver. There's always that sort of insanity, but we know these Canadian markets, there's always someone that's feeling the heat. Who's the lightning rod of the 2023-2024 Oilers?
Well, Darnell Nurse has been the lightning rod forever, but Evan Bouchard's doing his best job to take it away from him. Bouchard last night was -3. He had a play along the boards where he had the puck, he lost the puck, Flyer took it from him. He went to try to play him, but didn't play him physically. The guy walked right around him, and they went in and scored. So Bouchard, when he's engaged, is a really good defenseman. When he's not engaged, he's an absolute train wreck defensively, but still amazing offensively. Like he needs to find he needs to find a little bit, be an ass, go hit somebody, cross check somebody. It was a good way. Who did, it was MJ this morning. He described him as playing casually comfortable. And that's a great way to describe how Bouchard looks when he's on the ice. And I love him offensively, but describing him as playing casually comfortable defensively is the best way to describe him.
So Winnipeg time, 9 p.m. Saturday night. It's Jets and Oilers, and that will be following 6 p.m. on TSN, and another great crowd coming up at IG Field, the Bombers and the Elks. You will be in Winnipeg to call that game. What do you expect on Saturday between these two clubs? Obviously, the Bombers want to win this and take care. Tonight's result could change their need to win that, but I think we all expect BC to do their part and get the win. And then you got the Elks, who are playing for next year right now, but have been a much better team in the second half of the year than they were going 0-9 in the first half.
Yeah, I would. You know what I do expect? I expect a pretty exciting offensively played football game. That's what I'm expecting. The Elks defense, they are getting Niles Morgan back, which is big. He's the center of that defense at middle linebacker. Jake Cerez and AC Leonard have both had great seasons. They're both double digits in sacks. They're big pieces. I do believe they're getting Niles Morgan back, which is going to make them better. They're getting Scott Hutter back on special teams. He's one of their better special team players. We talked about it on the Lock Shop a little bit earlier in the week. Trey Ford and his legs can cause issues for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, like some other quarterbacks have for the Bombers. So I think that Trey Ford is a fascinating study right now because he is throwing just under 70%. He's a threat on the ground. We saw what he did early in that one game against Winnipeg, and then the Bombers obviously stormed back after Zach left that game and Drew Brown came in. But I do think sometimes he actually forces the pass when he could run a little bit. I'd like to see him sort of activate the legs even a little bit more this week against Winnipeg because he has the weapons. Like Kyron Moore's having a pretty nice season. Geno Lewis, when healthy this year, has been outstanding. Dunbar's been out for a while, so that doesn't count. But he's got Dylan Mitchell, and then they've got, outside of Brady Oliveira, who I think it's a runaway, and maybe a healthy AJ Ouellette when he's healthy. Kevin Brown is a phenomenal running back. Kevin Brown might be the second best running back in the Canadian Football League. He's averaging 6 points. He's averaging more yards per carry than Brady Oliveira is. Brown is legit. So you have this run attack when you can get it going of Brown and then boom Ford. They should be able to put us some points here, I think, on the road in Winnipeg. And, the Bombers are going to put up points. So I'd expect this game to, I don't know, we think they're probably going to cover, but does this game end up being 35-27 or something like that? I could see something along those lines.
Well, and the thing is, the Bomber defense, which at times looks, every bit the championship caliber defense that we've seen, throughout the last number of years, has sometimes had a little slow start, has been less engaged against some of the lower teams. But I think with the challenge at hand, knowing what's at stake, knowing what the job is for Winnipeg, get this win, be able to rest your players in that final game, and most importantly, book that West Final for IG Field on November 11th. You would hope that maybe some of those missteps that that unit's had earlier are avoidable coming up for this game. as far as the Canadian Football League goes right now, and the West in particular, I think we're all expecting BC and Winnipeg to be playing here on the 11th of November. You've called a lot of Rider games and a lot of Stamps games. What do you make of this race for third place? And are the Riders going to do it for 2 straight years, not win a game past Labor Day and run the table in the wrong way?
Yeah, I think they probably are. Like, but I also think like Riders fans have got to the point where they want that. Like, well, you've seen it in Winnipeg over the years. I've seen it in Edmonton for a decade prior to McDavid sort of arriving on the scene. Like, you realize where your organization's at. You realize what they've become, and you want change to try to turn things around because you care so passionately about the organization. Craig Dickinson is an awesome dude. I chat with a lot of these coaches every week, and he's one of the nicest, like not just from a coach level. Like, actually, you know what? The CFL is a really good spot. All these coaches are great guys. Like, they're all absolutely incredible, but Craig's like out of his way nice. Like, I don't want to see that guy lose his job, but I don't know how you save his job or the general manager's job, or at this point, if you listen to sports radio in Regina, the president's job. Like, people in Riderville are calling for change from top to bottom. And when you finish the last 2 seasons, if they do end up losing to the Argos, you finish the last 2 years 0-14 over your final 7 weeks. I mean, that has to lead to a house cleaning. So it's kind of weird because their issue is defense. Like, Emelis is having a great year. Sean Bain Jr. is having a great year. I guess Tevin Jones has some playbook issues, but he was on pace for 1,000 yards. And this is with a combination of Mason Fine and Jake Dolegala. It's not even with Trevor Harris at quarterback. And Jamal Morrow, when they actually run him, he does pretty well. So they too have some pieces. And as far as Calgary goes, this is the other Dickinson's first year doing all the jobs. And I think it probably has been a little bit overwhelming for him trying to find players that can come in. Reggie Begelton is such a focal point of that offense, and they didn't even have him last week and still ended up winning that game. So the real story here is that the race for third between Calgary and Saskatchewan doesn't even involve the third best team in the West right now, which is Edmonton. Like, I'd take Edmonton in a playoff game over either of those 2 teams right now. I really would.
It's funny you say that because, for about the last month, I've been looking ahead to this game, knowing what was at stake, first of all, in the Toronto and BC games, but knowing that this game might be important for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers when it came to winning the West. I've thought the exact same thing. I mean, BC and Winnipeg are in a class of their own, but of those 3 teams, I think the friskiest and most dangerous team right now is the team that we know will not be in the playoffs, the Edmonton Elks. And listen, they had nowhere to go but up. But I mean, I think we can all agree that there has been some improvement. And I'm sure for a lot of Edmonton fans, it's taken way too long under Chris Jones. But has there been a sense of optimism now? The home losing streak's gone. They've won a few games. Like, will people be, are they feeling it right now for the Elks and like some hope for going forward with Chris Jones? Because I imagine with all the contract situation, he's going to probably be the guy next year.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the way you phrase that question. I think there's hope moving forward with Trey Ford. I think there's hope moving forward with some of the pieces that they have. I'm not 100% sure there's hope moving forward with the fan base with Chris Jones, but you're right. I mean, he's probably going to be the guy. Now they've brought Rick Lawlisher back as interim president right now, and he'll end up working with the board and making some significant decisions if they can afford to in the offseason. But we wouldn't even be talking about the Riders and Stampeders battling for third if they would have just fired Stephen McAdoo or changed him from the offensive coordinator earlier in the season. Even if you started Cornelius, as long as you started Cornelius, if you at least had gone to Jarius Jackson 3 or 4 weeks into the season to call the offense differently, you would have won 1 or 2 of those games and you'd have a playoff spot pretty much locked up right now. So they waited too long to go there. That's a Chris Jones decision, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's somebody else in the organization.
Well, never mind waiting too long to go there. I mean, how many weeks was it until Ford actually got into a game?
Yeah, well, the same week they switched OC and quarterback the same week. And since then, you'd say they're probably a top 6 team in the Canadian Football League. I think the case could be made for that. So I know it's a 9-team league, but when you start the season 0-9 to all of a sudden say, hey, I saw a power ranking some week. I think CFL.ca had him like in 5th or 4th for a little while there when they won 4 or 5.
They're eating up.
Yeah, I do think, Trey Ford still has to work on, settling in as a quarterback, and he still makes some reads that have led to some picks that you're like, in 2-3 years, he sees that better, and so there's a ton of potential there with him. But Chris Jones basically wasted the first half of the season by trying to ride with Stephen McAdoo, who simply can't call an offense. We're seeing it. Like, as soon as they made the switch, they all of a sudden averaged like over 200 yards on the ground for 5 games in a row. So, defensively, they've always kind of been in the battle. Their entire secondary outside of Ed Gainey is rookies, basically, and some of those guys I think are going to develop into players. But offensively, they were an absolute train wreck. And then they had some plays early in the season. They got stopped against the Riders from the goal line where they just ran Kyle Loxley 3 bloody times. They've actually turned Cornelius into one of the better short yardage quarterbacks in the league. He's been outstanding in the short yardage role because he's a giant. So they just, they shot themselves in the foot for the first 2.5, 3 months of the season. And now they're sitting here and watching 2 teams that don't even want to be in the playoffs somehow fight for who has to go to the playoffs and get killed by the Lions in Vancouver.
No doubt about it. Dustin Nielson's with us. He'll have the call on TSN. Bombers, Elks, 6 p.m. Winnipeg time on Saturday. One final question for you, and it's back to the Bombers. You've seen this team almost as much as anybody this year. Who's the MOP on the Bombers? Is it Zach Collaros or is it Brady Oliveira?
You always ask the hardest questions, Huss. I have a hard time going away from Zach just because of how good he is. But if you were ever going to make a case for Brady Oliveira, this is probably the year. Like, the one thing that, like, for example, let's say you get to the West Final at IG Field, which is what's going to happen here. It's going to be BC. It's going to be Winnipeg. I cannot wait to call that game. Who's the biggest difference maker in that game? It's not Zach Collaros. It's not Vernon Adams. It's not either of the receiving cores. They're a wash. Both defenses have had ups and downs throughout the season. The biggest factor in the second biggest game of the year in the Canadian Football League is Brady Oliveira. And to me, that makes him the MOP coming out of Winnipeg. So I think in the end, it's going to go to Chad Kelly because of what's happened with Toronto, and he's been pretty good. But I would love to see Brady Oliveira get that West. Actually, what I'd love to see is have 3 nominees for all of the awards and just kind of abolish the East versus West thing so you can get the 3 best players in there a year. But I think I would give my vote to Brady Oliveira.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm sort of with you. I have a tough time going away from Zach for the body of work overall.
It's not an anti-Zach take. It's just a pro-Brady Oliveira take.
And I'll tell you what. I mean, I think there's also Collaros and Bomber fatigue when it comes to the trophy winners. So to have a new name coming out of Winnipeg might avoid some of that. And I mean, heck, you talk about the top Canadian. I mean, either Nick Dembski or Brady Oliveira will not be the top Canadian on their own team. And I think realistically, if you put together 2 or 3 finalists from the entire league, those guys would be on that list. So first world problems for the Bombers, that is for sure. Dusty, have a safe trip. I'll high-five you somewhere over Saskatchewan on the air. And we can recap all of it when we get back together in the lock shop at noon on Monday. And folks, if you haven't checked it out already, myself, Dusty, every day before Winnipeg Sports Talk at noon Winnipeg time, fired up in the lock shop with lots of fun sports talk and hit the lines and make a few wagers, have lots of fun with their friends over at Coolbet. You have a great weekend, my man, and I'll miss you in Edmonton this week. Don't burn Winnipeg down while I'm gone.
Safe travels, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
All right, great stuff with Dusty. If you see him, welcome him to the Peg on the weekend. He, of course, will have the call tomorrow night on TSN for another sold-out game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as they look to officially clinch the West Final. And hey, if you're at the game tomorrow, not only are all those great Canadian club products are available, but much like Canada Life Centre, you can now get the great taste of Little Brown Jug at Winnipeg Blue Bomber Games as official partner of the Bombers, and of course at Canada Life Centre now with the Winnipeg Jets. Had a generic at the game last night. A great addition, if I do say so. And of course tomorrow at the Poutineries and the hometown concession stands, you can get the local beers, including Winnipeg's and WST favorite Little Brown Jugs, iconic 1919. Heck, the weekend is here. might be time to go pick up a rack. You can grab Little Brown Jug and all their great selections wherever sells great beer. Manitoba Liquor Marts, and of course at the Brewery and Tap Room down on William Avenue in the Exchange. And check them out online as well at littlebrownjug.ca. All their beers, all their merchandise there with local delivery options as well. And a big shout out to Nick and Nikki DQ. Saw Nick, I think I mentioned this yesterday, Nick doing some pitas out at the new pita pit in Niverville that they've got. Pop by it if you're in the Niverville area and check out that new pita pit. But hey, if the sweet tooth is what you're waiting for and you want those great burgers, 4 locations for Nick and Nikki DQ. DQ Northgate, DQ Niverville, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. Big thanks to them for their support since day one of Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, Marbles registration is open. We'll get to that in a few minutes at the top of the hour to finish off the week, but it's not a Friday show without hitting the NFL notebook with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, who joins us now. Lee, what's up? How are you doing, my friend?
99 degrees in downtown San Diego. That's how I'm doing. It's the middle of October. Andrew, what's the hell's going on?
I imagine there were a lot of Charger fans asking what the hell's going on these days. And they're in a very unenviable position right now in the Widowmaker spot of the schedule, playing on Monday night and now traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs, who played on Thursday. Just what Andy Reid needs, another extra 3 days of preparation for Brandon Staley while he's not getting to the Chiefs until Tuesday. A tough spot and a tough week for the Chargers. That Cowboys-Chargers game was kind of hilariously bizarre in that both teams a lot of times can't get out of their own way, but more of the same for LA, Lee. Strange decisions, aggressive at some times, not at others, and it all ended up in another loss for a game that was very much winnable for the Bolts, I thought.
Hustler, everybody in Chargerville's taking a lot of heat. That head coach, and for the first time, the quarterback, because Justin Herbert signed a $262 million contract extension right before the season started. He's just not the same quarterback right now. Now, he's really banged up. His offensive line has played really poorly. They don't have a power running game. The defense, especially the secondary, is deficient. And they're in a real tough corner now because not only do they have short work week going to Kansas City, they got the Chiefs now kind of hitting the reset button, and Kansas City's bringing back Mecole Hardman, who would be a veteran receiver who has had some success with Andy Reid, kind of washed out with the Jets. And Kansas City, I think, is about to sign Frank Clark, the veteran defensive end, to bring him back again. Kansas City's all about Patrick Mahomes. Did some checking here. Write these numbers down, Hustler. Patrick Mahomes in his career, his record is 80-20. Think about that. In the NFL, 80-20. Guy's got 238 touchdowns, 61 interceptions on the season. At Arrowhead Stadium, where it's a little bit loud, kind of tough to play, Mahomes is 42-10 as a starter in his Kansas City career. And he's 7-2 against the Bolts with a 99 quarterback rating. And he popped off this week because there's been some critique. Their offense is not the explosive offense we've seen in the last 5 years or so. And he kind of went public. And I'm sure Andy Reid caught wind of it or read it or probably heard it. He wants to go up tempo. They want to go no huddle. I got a feeling the Charger defense, which isn't that good, is going to walk into that place and they're going to get nailed because they're going to go fast tempo, no huddle, all that. I'm fascinated to see if Kansas City can kind of hit the switch and get back to what they used to be. Herbert, I'm disappointed. I'm not blaming the quarterback. I'm blaming everybody around the quarterback, including the front office and the coach. His record, get this, is 27-28. He's a sub-500 quarterback in the league. But he's got like 103 touchdowns, and he's only got 37 interceptions. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He runs. I think he's a quality leader. They just don't have a lot around him. And, of course, the Bolts are 31st in the league in defense, 32nd in pass defense. So I think they're going to have their hands full against Kansas City. After that opening day loss, even though Kansas City's not what we've seen in the past, you can identify with that. They've won 5 in a row. And nobody's talking about the defense. Spagnuolo's defense, get this. When was the last time Kansas City gave up 292 yards per game? mean,
I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean they're really playing well. And the one thing that's changed in about 24 months over 2 drafts is they've gone in the marketplace and they have gotten a lot of guys who can run. Their secondary is very, very athletic. Linebacking is a little bit iffy right now, but Chris Jones is creating mayhem. They drafted pass rushing guys off the edge. So, yeah, Chargers got their hands full. And that being said, still on the Chargers schedule, they have a second game with Kansas City. They got to play Buffalo. They got to play Detroit. They got to go to Green Bay. So, I mean, they've got tough games. They've already got 3 losses. So if they have a 4th loss by Sunday night, they're going to be in such a hole. I just don't know if they can dig out of it.
Well, and listen, I mean, they are not doing themselves any favors. I mean, you mentioned those ugly defensive stats. I mean, as far as yards allowed and points allowed, they got to be number 1 in stupid penalties too. I mean, the 15-yarders that team takes on a regular basis.
Derwin James, tough guy.
That's
Stupid
one of their
guy.
leaders.
He is their leader, and here's a stat for you. They have 10 personal foul penalties on 3rd downs this season. 10 in 5 games. So I mean, they got issues all over the place, and a lot of people really unhappy with Brandon Staley. He stapled on the front of his resume when he got this job was what he's done defensively in the league. Sure, not doing it here, and they can't win close games. That's the other thing. They've lost in Brandon Staley's 3 seasons so far. They've lost 10 games by 3 points or less. And he's in denial there's anything wrong there. And my response is they don't give out participation trophies in the NFL. You got Justin Herbert. You should not have 10 losses by 3 points or less. Okay, that's the end of my sermon on the Chargers, Kansas City.
Hey, well, you listen, while we're talking about teams in turmoil in the AFC, been a long time since we've seen the New England Patriots in the dire straits that they're at right now. They've got a Buffalo Bills team that didn't look very good on Sunday Night Football, but has owned New England as of late. The quarterback's not playing well. And, I mean, the turmoil there seems to go all the way up to the owner and, of course, the guy that's been running the show for the last 2 decades.
I've been told in Boston that Robert Kraft is not talking to Belichick. That's not a good sign.
Wow.
But I will also tell you, at the end of the day, the Patriots general manager, Belichick, has let the Patriots coach, Belichick, down. Their player acquisitions have not been very good. They do draft well defensively. They've rebuilt the defense. They've got some really good guys and young guys who can play on the back end. But their offense is negligible. I dare you to pull up a New England depth chart and tell me if there are any playmakers on the offensive side of the football. And I know it's convenient for everybody to bash Mac Jones, the starting quarterback, he's slipped and he's regressed. I'm stunned that the relationship with Mac Jones and Bill O'Brien has not taken off because I thought that would be an instant fix. I just went back late last night. I went back and looked at his drafts recently, and Belichick makes all the decisions on player personnel. He's got 3 drafts in a row in which the top 3 picks, 9 players total, they whiffed on. They're all gone. You can't blow 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round picks in 19, 20, and 21 and not expect it to hurt your franchise. So, I mean, and he doesn't deal much in free agency. Their veteran rentals haven't really worked out. I'm still waiting for Ezekiel Elliott to be what Ezekiel Elliott was in Dallas, but maybe he's not at age 29. So they've got all types of internal problems. I don't think that Kraft is going to fire Belichick in the middle of the season, but, they're 1-5, and they are not competitive in any facet of offensive football. So, yeah, you're correct. Team turmoil, that fits right there.
Lee, before we get to a couple of the big other big games outside of Chiefs-Chargers on the docket, a lot of quarterback stories around the National Football League and some pretty significant injuries that are making for some pretty, shall we say, bizarre QB matchups coming up this weekend.
Yeah, there's some really strange junk out there. Let's just kind of go around the roadmap here real quick. Obviously, you got the New England situation. Arizona, Kyler Murray has just been activated off the injured reserve list. He has been out since middle of last season after knee surgery, but he's probably 4 weeks away. Arizona needs him. Arizona's just a disaster. But Kyler Murray has just started to practice, but that's going to take some time. It was interesting on Wednesday, Deshaun Watson finally leaked out and revealed that he has a partial tear of his rotator cuff. They've been saying it's a bruised rotator cuff. Well, he said, no, it's a partial tear and rest and rehab. He went out and he took all the snaps today, which was really surprising because he took about half the snaps yesterday, which was his first day on the field. Now, I don't know whether or not he's going to play on Sunday, but they've had 3 different starting quarterbacks so far this season, and they're scuffling. The worst case scenario happened. Anthony Richardson, the number 1 pick of the Colts, he's gone for the year. He had 3 different injuries in a 5-week span. And you and I have talked about this in the past, was quarterbacks who run in the NFL will make plays and then they're going to get hurt. And he had 3 injuries in 5 weeks, different parts of his body, all because he was running and scrambling. And now he's had a major injury, right shoulder, fractured AC joint. That rehab takes a long period of time. And the fact he was throwing shoulder is bad. Good piece of news. I'm not quite sure how to interpret this at this point in October. Aaron Rodgers confirmed this week that, he had the ruptured Achilles tendon. He had what's called spread brace surgery to repair the Achilles. It allows him, I cut class. They taught medicine in college, so I missed that lesson. But this it's called speed brace surgery allows you to rehab inside 3 to 6 months. And he's already standing without a cane. He's been throwing. I don't know if he's doing all the physical movements yet that a quarterback would be doing. Maybe he's doing physical stuff with his foot and his leg in the weight room. But they say he's really ahead of schedule because of the speed brace surgery. And one other really bad note, and I just can't buy that this is being allowed to happen in Las Vegas. Chandler Jones was a Pro Bowl defensive end, really good player. He's been arrested 3 times now in the last 2 weeks for violation of a protection order because of domestic abuse things. And he was acting very strangely prior to all these arrests, all kinds of junk he was doing on social media, missing meetings, and finally got locked out of the radio facility. And then the police came to his house and made a mental health visitation to, do an evaluation of him and took him to a psychiatric center for an evaluation. He's been arrested a 3rd time. I want to know where's his agent in all this? How come there's been no intervention, either by the Raiders, or where's the Players Association trying to protect their help this player? This player is obviously a fine player. B, he's got, I think, significant mental health issues. He's like out there walking the streets of Las Vegas with no shoes on at 3 o'clock in the morning, and people are treating it like, that's okay. And they keep getting arrested. So, those are the hot headlines with players around the NFL.
Lee, before we go, I want to ask you about 2 big-time games on the weekend. We hit Chiefs-Chargers early. We've got Lions in Baltimore, and the Lions' backfield been really banged up. It looks like their first-round pick, Jahmyr Gibbs, is going to be good to go. Thoughts on that game? And then the big one Sunday night. Eagles coming off that crazy loss to the Jets against Miami in a battle of one-loss teams.
Detroit, Baltimore. Lamar Jackson has become a one-man show. He's got like 1,600 all-purpose yards throwing and running. Lamar Jackson should meet Aiden Hutchinson, the pass rusher from Detroit. They're going to slow him down. I don't know if Detroit's got enough offense, although Jared Goff is having statistically just a phenomenal season. This guy couldn't play for the Rams a couple of years ago. Jared, get this number. In his last 17 games, which goes back to last October, the middle of last season, he's got 29 touchdowns and 4 picks in the last 17 games in Detroit. This year, he's got 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's got a 105 quarterback rating. It's a guy the Rams didn't want. So he's not being asked to carry the load in Detroit because their defense is carrying the load. But what he's doing is he's making a ton of plays down the field. And, Detroit's won at Kansas City. They won at Green Bay, and they won at Tampa Bay. I mean, these guys are the real deal. So that'll be a fun game to see Lamar go against Detroit's defense. The other one, hey, 2 weeks ago, if you thought we'd never ever see anything again that would top Miami-Buffalo, hey, now we got Philadelphia-Miami. Tua and the boys, they're averaging 498 yards per game. Now, their defense has given up almost 400 yards per game. Nobody's talking about the Miami defense. But Tua's hot. Tyreek Hill's averaging 19 yards per catch. Jalen Waddle's averaging 12. And then you got Philadelphia. Their offense is clicking it at 395 yards per game with Jalen Hurts. Hurts is doing an awful lot. I think Hurts is doing too much. I think Hurts is going to get hurt if he continues to run the football the way he is. Philadelphia's defense is only giving up 298. They're not quite playing to the Super Bowl level that they played last year, but we're only 6 weeks into the season. So I think Miami, Philadelphia. Is it Sunday yet? I think it's going to be great.
Cannot wait. Lee, I love the little pop-up show you had on Monday, getting ready for the Monday Nighter there on the Hacksaw channel. Of course, LeeHacksawHamilton.com is the website, but you continue to grow your multimedia empire. Just fill people in on where they can get more of the saw throughout the week.
We're not as good as you yet, but we're coming, pal. Actually, if you like sports in Canada, check my website. I write on it every day. It's absolutely free. There's nothing in the freaking world that's free except what you're doing, what I'm doing. But check my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. We cover anything and everything, including a bunch of hockey, which is important to you guys and me. And then we started this YouTube thing, and it's just exploded. And by the way, just full disclosure, when people bark at me, they don't like what I'm doing on my podcast, I just decided to start giving them your cell phone number because you're the one that put me involved with this podcast.
That's where all these calls are coming from.
That's right. We do a Monday bonus podcast or a Thursday podcast. You can subscribe to that. And we do stuff. We put stuff every day on the YouTube channel. And then we also do some really creative stuff with Instagram. So it's rocking and rolling. I don't know how it works, but it's working.
Never thought you'd be the king of Instagram, but here we are. Lee, have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Thanks for doing this.
Have yourself a great sports weekend, Hustler. Be well. Talk to you soon.
Right on. There is our guy, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And again, definitely check out and give the Saw a sub when you get on over to his site. All right. Last call for marbles, everybody. Exclamation mark marbles in the chat. You know how we finish up the week here on WST. We'll get to that in just a minute. But let's quickly get to the Coolbet lines. And tonight, only 2 games in the National Hockey League. A lot of pressure. I'm 4-0 this week on the daily pick, putting out on Coolbet Canada. I think I'm leaning to the Devils tonight in New York to take on the Islanders. Devils are minus 114, Islanders minus 103. We'll throw that out on the Coolbet socials a little later on today. And the Calgary Flames, a minus 149 favorite in Seabus to take on the Blue Jackets. We do have Canadian Football League action tonight. And the BC Lions were 8.5-point favorites. That number is now down to 8. Big lines this week in the CFL. Tomorrow, Riders 9-point home dogs to the Toronto Argonauts. And the Bombers laying 11-point home dogs. If you do want to jump on the dogs with myself and Dustin Nielson, we do have a partner parlay in the Lock Shop section under the Coolbet exclusives with Calgary plus 8.5, Riders plus 9.5, Edmonton plus 11.5. That one is paying plus 650. And although they're not up yet, I will tell you, we got a couple of our Lock Shop boosted parlays. Our partner parlay for this week is going to be the Bills minus 8.5. We're actually taking a bunch of points. I usually like to get the points. This time we're going to lay them. Bills minus 8.5 against the Pats. Washington, the Commanders, we're going to be putting our left hand up when they win by 3. They're 2.5-point favorites at MetLife to take on the Giants. And the Seattle Seahawks, 7.5-point favorites over the Arizona Cardinals. So we'll have that one. And then I did do a ride with Huss, 3-gamer. I got the Chiefs minus 5.5. I am taking the points with the Pittsburgh Steelers as a 3.5-point underdog against the Rams. And I can't wait for that Sunday nighter. I'm on Philly minus 2.5 against Miami. Again, those should be up later on this afternoon, probably within the hour in the Lock Shop section over at Coolbet. And again, we went through all the picks today. Myself, Patty, JBM. You can check that out. Subscribe to the Lock Shop wherever you get your favorite podcast. And don't forget, Dusty and I are live Monday to Friday at noon before Winnipeg Sports Talk over on the EST channel. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST. Hook you up with a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit over at Coolbet. All right. Remo, what a week it has been. And there is only one thing left for us to do here before we get rolling with the official start to the weekend. And that, of course, is a Friday marbles race on WST.
Yeah, we got 231 people in. Am I closing the entries now? It's certainly close to getting after 3. We're running late. So much stuff here to get to. So I'll close it up. Last call. And
perfect. And while you do that, I will recommend to everybody to make sure you are subscribed to the channel. All you need to do is press that subscribe button. Then you'll be eligible to win the WST hoodie. Shout out to Shipman Associates for their support and making those beauties up. And we'll give one out to whoever is the winner of today's. Hey, there's the Gitch. What's going on, Gitch? Speaking of big winners, this guy's been on a bit of a heater lately. So yeah, we'll close it all up. And again, hit that subscribe button. We're only a couple subs away from getting to 10,100. So it'll be nice. Now, once we're past 10K, we only see the change every 100 subs as opposed to before when it was every 10. So we'd love to kind of get to 10.1 over the course of the weekend and start building on that next week. So again, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already. Always appreciate that. And let's get ready. I believe the CTO has picked a great new track for us as well. But before we drop the marbles, it's Friday afternoon, and that means we need the official marble intro from the legendary Tristan Rivers Music. Remo, can we play the song?
It's Friday, another week of work gone by. You deserve to treat yourself, maybe a nice cream cake or a bottle of wine. From the whole day in so lax you can't deny. Why is ever leaving for pleasure? If I love you try. Time to do a marble race. Now separate best to worst. Marble race. And follow the punctuation first. Marble race. Don't spend what you will suffer the always make. Marble race. You don't know before it's too late. Just go.
Alrighty, let's fire it up, Reem. You were telling me off air about this new track that we're dropping today with the field goal ending. I cannot wait to see this.
yes, this is going to be a good one. Hold on one second. My computer is. I got too many tabs open here. Uh-oh.
Oh my God, tabs again. Tab issues.
Okay, wait, let me fix all this. Yeah, I got a great track. Tested it out. It was working good.
Yeah, I'm just checking out the chat here. Yeah. Oh, I guess bombing did the bonfire maybe a little early, but that'll be there for you if you want a little more on tomorrow's Bomber game with bombing and Walby. You can get that over at the Bonfire channel as well. And I did see, who is it that was just mentioning in chat? Oh, Jason Jett. What up, Jace? Caleros probably will not play if Calgary wins tonight, but it's hard to sit players when the roster's already set. I think even if Calgary wins, I think we will see Caleros play a quarter, a half, because I'm pretty sure that assuming that one way or the other, the Bombers clinch the West this week, I think probably Caleros, a number of members of the O-line, probably some of the top defensive players, especially some of the ones that are a little older in years, probably get the Calgary game off. And as Ed Tait said, you know, it is a great opportunity to get reps in for some of the players that haven't played very much because, of course, you never know what's going to happen come playoff time. And what guy that we barely saw through the regular season might all of a sudden be called up into prime time in a big-time situation. So the sooner the Bombers can clinch this, the better, both for the overall health of the club as well as getting some very important reps for players that haven't had very many throughout the regular season. How are we looking?
We're looking good. I'm just changing some of these settings here to make sure that it runs smoothly. I'm not sure why it got so weird, but that's fine. I'm just fixing it.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Okay. The quality here. Okay, we're good now.
All right. It's all been figured out. We've played the song. Now it's time to get it up. How many people did you say are in today?
We got a lot here. We have 232 in the race. Was there anyone you wanted to add?
232, and we've got 233. Tell you what, let's give Alex Iafallo a marble.
He's been good.
Newcomer, big game last night. Big game last night. You know what? I think that's. You know what? Let's give Christine Sinclair one.
Sure, big retirement.
The legendary Canadian footballer officially announcing her retirement today after her incredible career. The most decorated goal scorer in, I believe, international soccer history. I know we talk a lot about Messi and Ronaldo. Christine Sinclair has been doing it on the women's side for a long, long time. And, of course, all the great victories, the greatest victories in the history of Canadian soccer have been with her wearing the captain's armband of Team Canada.
Yeah, I mean, what a legend in terms of international football. So, congratulations to her on her retirement. One thing we didn't touch on. Am I adding her? Am I adding on anyone else, or do we got these 234? Because I got stuff.
AI and Christine Sinclair.
Andre Iguodala, who retired. Oh, you mean Alex Iafallo?
Yeah, AI, exactly. Not
Andre Iguodala did retire today. 18 seasons in the NBA. I had him on my fantasy team a lot. The start of his career with the 76ers. Anyway, I'll fire up this list here. What's the date today? October 20th. And I didn't
believe 11 days away from Halloween.
Yeah, I didn't pick a Halloween themed track.
That's okay. That's okay. We can maybe do that next week. I'm sure there'll be some great user created Halloween type tracks. What's this one called?
Okay, this one is called. Okay, we only have a couple less than we had last week. 234. This one is called. What is it called? Adorable. It was Adorable Flowing Alley. And
I like it.
I tested it. These ones that say adorable in it, I think are a good track.
Nice. That must all be done by the same.
I don't know.
Must be the same creator of these tracks.
Everything's so adorable.
Here we are. All right, folks. So this is Ellen Adeth's Adorable Flowing Alley. A new marble track for us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. 234 marbles are in the queue. Good luck to everyone. Thank you for popping in and making Winnipeg Sports Talk part of your Friday afternoon ritual. Tell a friend about the marble race and the show and where they can subscribe and find us. It's always helpful. And hey, we got a big day tomorrow with Bombers in action against the Elks in Winnipeg, the Jets and the Oilers in Edmonton. But the weekend doesn't officially start until the marbles are dropped on Winnipeg Sports Talk. 234 of you in the race today. Good luck to all. Remo, let's go and see what the Adorable Flowing Alley is all about.
They're off.
Right off the bat. Look at Amanda, first place, right off the bat. That was short-lived. Garrett Soloway with a really nice start, kind of jumping ahead of everybody. Pretty in Pionk right behind Garrett in first place. This is an interesting one. You go down, you go up, then you go down again. But I'm pretty sure by my calculations, it is Garrett that is in first place, although there's plenty of company right now. Pretty in Pionk's in there. Tom Morrissey. I see Royster as well. Oh, we've got a bit of a jump here. I see some jumping marbles. There's Larry TSG. Now we go into these. I don't know what these are called here. These spinning globes. It's just a matter of how you... Oh, Drew Music, CP, Johnny Bird thrown over the top rope early. Turd Ferguson and Brown Eyed Girl getting shot forward. Oh, this is a wild one. So you go into one of these cones... And then depending on which cone you go into or funnel, it shoots you out. Brown-eyed girl MJD, who allegedly accidentally blocked Rob Mahoney, is in first place right now. A likely story, brown-eyed girl MJD. I kid. Here we go. Now going over into this next funnel. Brown Eyed Girl MJD in first place. Now, Lauren Cretton. Phyllis, no. Just got top roped. A few more casualties. But Brown Eyed Girl MJD is in first place. Holy smoly. Turd Ferguson, Presley, MV Dub, our top 5. And there's Garrett right there. Garrett Soloway after that great start. Still right in the middle of it. Brown Eyed Girl slowing down a little bit. And look at this. Bullish Bradley making a real run out on the left lane. A very close one. And now one of these puzzle type features where you never really know how things are going to work. Oh, Brown Eyed Girl MJD. A excellent maneuver to get through in first place, just ahead of Bullish Bradley. You're right. This is a great track.
I just want to explain the finish to you. There's a field goal up right there. You need to hit the upright to finish. If you go through the uprights, you're eliminated. So watch out here.
Here we go. It looks like Herb's going to have the first chance. Herb Sturman in first place, although slowing down a little bit. Trevor Frost there. Justin F. Ken B. Tony Pop as well. This could be very interesting. Oh, Dark Moon just got popped. All right. Hitting. Who's it going to be? Ken B got it. Look at Ken. Herb. Justin. Tony Pop. We did see a few now not hitting it and getting
most
eliminated.
Most of them are hitting it, but when I tested it, it wasn't that automatic. And you're seeing a lot of people get eliminated there. So
right
shout out to Ken B.
Ken B, nice win. Ken, fire us an email at Winnipeg Sports Talk at gmail.com. As I say, I'm jumping to the airport right after the show, but I'll be around next week if you want to come by someday after the show and pick it up. We'll make that happen. I'm with you. It's your boy Bruce. It is quite the course. Ken be nimble. Ken be quick. Nicely done, Atomic. So here's your top 10. Ken B, Herb Sturman, Justin F, Tony Pop, Peg City Hawks fan in at 5th, EK Posty 6th, Bullish Bradley 7, TB Guy 13, MC Stormy, and WST favorite Mary Jane cracking the top 10. That's a good sign for the weekend, Mary Jane. A strong Friday afternoon performance in marbles should lead to a great weekend for you. Ken B's our winner. Reem, as always, you can just kind of run down and see who got it. Oh, looks like Shorn's going to be giving Ross 20. Nice performance by Ross. 15th today. Pretty and Pionk in at 20. Bardot, look, there's Bridget, looking good. Jerry Beluda. Who else do we have here? There's the Hoot Man at 34. T. Will, 42nd. Craig Smith. What's up, Craig? Looking good, buddy. Alex Iafallo, 51st. Not too bad for his, I believe, first marble race. Or no, maybe second. I think we gave all the former Kings marbles one of these days. Velveeta, there's Ryan. Derek Schmidt, part of our Movember team. Hey, again, if any of you are planning on doing Movember and growing the stash, we'd love for you to join the Winnipeg Sports Talk team. We'll maybe try and grab a few perks for y'all from our friends at Modern Man Barbershop. But it'll be a great way to kind of follow your progress. We'll be promoting it. We'll hopefully help you guys raise some money. So if you're down with the stash for the month of November, or Movember as it were, send us an email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. And a big thanks to Julian and Onebird and Derek and Leighton, who've already said that they're in. Would love to sort of get a group of about 8 to 10 dudes to make that happen. Before we go, if you just popped in and maybe missed the start of the show, we do have 4 pairs of social passes for the Bomber game tomorrow, courtesy of our friends at Canadian Club. There is, you can see the link right there. There's a couple draws. We're doing them over at the website. So if you're able to go and use them, get in those draws. Remis will be sending out those tickets a little later on. Congratulations to the Moose ticket winners for tonight. Got a couple more Moose seats for tomorrow. And again, those 8 social passes where you won't have an assigned seat, but you will have a cold CC and ginger waiting for you at the game tomorrow as well. So it should be a lot of fun. What's on your schedule, Remis, other than a very busy night of sports watching tomorrow? Are you going to the game?
No, I actually got invited to a party. I'm pretty pumped. So we're watching both games there. And I just want to give a shout out. If you're listening on the podcast and you've made it this far, what's up? That's pretty awesome that you listen to the Marble Race play-by-play. But yeah, winnipegsportstalk.com/tickets. If you want Bomber tickets for Saturday, and winnipegsportstalk.com/contest if you want Moose tickets for Saturday. And yeah, a lot of sports. The baseball underway. Hard not to get on the Phillies train here, Huss. They're just demolishing everyone. So I'll probably be watching some of that.
They lost last night.
Yeah, I mean, you can't win every game. So those guys just mash. I love the lineup. So I'm looking forward to the baseball. And yeah, big day for Winnipeg versus Edmonton tomorrow. Is there going to be a Winnipeg parlay on Coolbet, Jets and Bombers?
Well, check that out. Maybe we'll make something like that happen with the fellows over there. We will have the partner parlays in there. And by the way, keep an eye on the channel tomorrow, because as I said, I'm heading out to Edmonton tonight. Going to hook up with Tommy Zola from Edmonton Sports Talk tomorrow. And I think we'll probably crank out a bit of a game preview after the morning skates together, which I hope to have on our YouTube channel as well as on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel as well. And again, I'll miss you all at the Bomber game tomorrow, but let's see the fellas take care of business. Have a great time tomorrow night. Don't forget, Princess Auto Tailgate Zone opens at 4:00 p.m. tomorrow with a 6:00 kickoff. Then finish up the game and get in front of a television somewhere to see if the Jets can get their second win of the season against the Oilers, coming off that 4-1 loss in Philly to the Flyers last night. Been a great week of shows. Thanks to all of you for being a part of it. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk. Tell them to subscribe. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We'll get to 10.1 and continue moving forward. But thanks to all of our guests today, Dustin Nielson, Hacksaw, Eddie Tait, Scott Billeck, and a great crew in chat as always. Folks, I got to get out of here. Check out the channel tomorrow as well as my socials for a little bit of content from Edmonton before Jets Oilers. Have an awesome weekend, and we will see you Monday, 1 p.m. right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.